Riddle me this, pod fans. What's 90 minutes long, arrives every Friday, and all about the Caped Crusader? Why, it's Blabbin' About Batman, the animated series, the newest Patreon-exclusive podcast miniseries on the Talking Simpsons network.
That's right. For the rest of 2022, we'll be covering 8 of our favorite episodes of Batman the Animated Series with the same heavy-duty research, clips, and trivia you've come to expect from us. And if you sign up at the $5 level today at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you'll get to hear each episode as soon as it goes live.
Remember, sign up at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons to hear all 8 episodes of Blabbin' About Batman, the animated series, as well as the 100+ other exclusive podcast episodes we produced so far. So become a patron and join us through the rest of 2022 for another great miniseries. Same Bat Day, same Bat podcast feed.
I heartily endorse this event or product.
Ahoy hoy everybody, and welcome to Talking Simpsons, home of the Super Sunday Brunch Spectacular. I am one of your hosts, the retired criminal Bob Mackey, and this is our chronological exploration of The Simpsons. Who else is here with me today?
Henry Gilbert, and this is my podcast, Lock of the Week.
And who do we have on the line, our special guest today?
Well, I guess this is my shoe-in of the week because you stole the one I was going to go for. This is Alex Navarro from Nextlander.
And this week's episode is Lisa the Greek.
Now stay tuned for 6 hours of exciting football action.
Well, bye-bye belt.
This week's episode originally aired on January 23rd, 1992, and as always, Henry will tell us what happened on this mythical day in real-world history.
Oh my God! Happy Super Bowl week, Bobby. The truly crappy Capitol Critters debuts on ABC. Color Me Bad's All for Love tops the charts, and just as Lisa predicts, the Washington football team wins the Super Bowl. And yes, it's Super Bowl week. They timed it for this episode. We have a ton of stuff to say about the Super Bowl that happened this week. So I'll just say the Capitol Critters, we covered that very in-depth, unfortunately, on a What a Cartoon podcast a little over a year ago, I think.
I think so. All I'll say is more like capital shitters, and that's all I got.
I feel like I've maybe seen one episode of that show, and that was enough for me.
Yeah, it's a terrible show. Only exists because of The Simpsons. The Simpsons got very successful, and so, then Steven Bochco's like, well, I can make a cartoon too. What if it was like a terrible political cartoon about the rats who live in the White House? Like, what would they say? with very stupid things about race to say included.
It was a bad idea because we all know the White House is full of clowns.
Yes.
Yeah,
not rats.
A circus.
Yeah,
the Capitol Circus.
That's a better show.
But yes, learn all about that in that podcast. And Color Me Bad's All for Love. It's a nice little song to listen to at the Super Bowl.
It's no I Want to Sex You Up, but it's all right.
Sure. Oh yeah, that's a much better.
I'm thinking of more the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves All for Love.
Oh yes, yeah. Hey, that's a good All for Love too.
And that was just a year prior to this, or maybe the previous year, or 2 years ago. I don't know, like 1991.
91, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, the big news this week is the Super Bowl, which is why they timed this episode for it as well. Mm-hmm. And this is a very football-y episode of The Simpsons, and we've got a good guest for that as well.
Yes, joining us this week is Alex Navarro of Nextlander. Welcome back to the show, Alex.
Thank you so much for having me. Finally, my football expertise can be put towards something that isn't just playing Madden every year.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an episode about football in which you actually see no football being played.
Yes. It's amazing that, and I was going to say, Alex, I was like, well, I know Alex must know something about football based on how many times he's reviewed Madden, the NFL video game.
Yes, it's true. I've been watching football for many, many years of my life. I briefly worked as a tester on the 2K football games for 1 year before I got an actual job in games media. Video games and football have permeated my life in ways that maybe they shouldn't have, but here I am.
Well, and so, when this episode aired in early 92, were you already a football fan even at that young age?
I was like a loose football fan at that age. Like, baseball was kind of my sport of choice when I was like about that old. So I grew up, when I sort of became aware of football, I grew up in geographically the team that would have been the one that all the people around me were rooting for would have been the Washington football team. And even as a kid, before I even knew about the racism aspect of it. I hated that team, despised them, wanted nothing to do with them. And then I picked the Patriots for some reason because it was just like they had the orange uniforms back then. I was like, they look kind of cool. And then I was rewarded with let's say about 15 years of mediocrity before Tom Brady came around and then gave them some Super Bowls and then ruined all that by having a MAGA hat in his locker.
Well, I feel the same way like with pro wrestlers. It's like, look, I just assume every pro wrestler is probably a conservative guy, and then I get to be happily surprised when they're not, Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like every sports person will eventually disappoint you in some way. You just hope it is a mild disappointment in the end. Does gambling enter into your enjoyment of football in any level?
This is not a sting.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing. The thing that struck me the most about this episode, especially watching it now, is how quaint it feels, considering that literally when you watch ESPN now and they are talking about football, they are putting the betting odds in the legitimate coverage of their sport because it has become so legal and so embraced by the leagues because they know that they can make an absolute garbage ton of money off of it. It's everywhere now. And I was never much of a sports gambler. I would bet $50 on the Super Bowl with my friends. That was it. And now it's just everywhere and it's kind of horrible.
Yes. We'll get to it eventually, but in this in the episode, Homer says, it's only illegal in 48 states. That has changed. Some form of gambling is illegal in every state because America is a failed state. We can't actually collect taxes anymore, so we have to steal from poor people. We found a new way to do it, and that's making every kind of gambling legal, or at least one kind per state. And sports betting is actually illegal in 30 states at this point, at this recording.
It's nuts. I didn't realize how pervasive it was and how heavily advertised it was until a lot of those companies started advertising them on podcasts. I would hear them on podcasts. And also, I am not a sports viewer regularly, but the Venn diagram crosses over with wrestling. And so when I watch pro wrestling on TV, that is when I see the ads for gambling sites, even ones who do product placement on AEW Dynamite.
Yes.
Where they say where you can gamble again on the intentionally faked or predetermined pro wrestling shows. It's ridiculous.
It's totally ridiculous, and you definitely see it a lot on AEW because, again, Tony Khan is from, his father owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the ownership has embraced it, everyone seems to have embraced it, and it just feels like we're running out of ways to squeeze money out of the rube, so let's just legalize every possible avenue.
I'd rather bet on the Bud Bowl than on wrestling.
It's probably it's slightly less fixed.
I've never gambled on wrestling. I haven't. Of all the things that I'm not saying I don't love gambling, but I've never gambled on sports in general. It just seems too complicated, especially once I saw that Safdie Brothers movie Uncut Gems. And I was like, man, sports gambling is so complicated. All of these side bets and all this stuff
the spreads,
bets. Yes. It's too complex. I want to sit in front of a machine and I press a button on it, and then when the spinning things stop, I either won or I didn't.
Yep.
Now, you never bet on wrestling, Henry. Have you ever pulled the lever of a John Cena slot machine?
Cena hasn't done it yet. I would if there was one there. If there was a Cena branded slot machine.
I don't gamble. I don't like it. There's no religious reasons or history of addiction or anything. I don't like the idea of losing money. Mm-hmm. And just the other day I was in an arcade playing the crane machines, and after 3 tries I just felt very sad. I wasted all these Dave and Buster points and I'll never get them back. And I didn't have any pride and no, I must win it now. Sunk cost fallacy. I just walked away. I'm a bad gambler for that reason. I just walk away.
But so in your case, you actually ended up in the perfect situation where you tried a few times, didn't lose a lot of money, and you said, okay, I'm done. You've cut yourself off. The worst thing that can happen to you in gambling is winning a decent amount once, because then you are going to chase that for the rest of your damn life.
Yeah, no, I think that happened to my dad. I've heard this story that on my parents' honeymoon that he hit big and then lost it all and then sold their plane tickets or whatever to try to win back some money, and that didn't work either. Kind of ruined their honeymoon.
That's a very Homer Simpson move, I feel like.
Yes, yeah. I promise I'm not mistaking an episode of the show with my parents. But also, Alex, with your Madden knowledge too, I wonder is Madden ever used for gambling purposes? Do people ever sim out games in that for gambling?
So I haven't seen that, but they EA would always send out a press release of like, we simmed the Super Bowl and here's how we think who's going to win and who's going to have the most touchdowns and all that stuff. And it was, hey, they were wrong about 52% of the time, I will say.
Oh, Madden gambling. This brings me back to 20 years ago when I was in college, and there was a little cafe on campus. In one room, you could play Madden in with people. They had to shut the room down because a gambling ring had started.
Whoa.
Yes.
Wow, man. That's, jeez. We didn't do Super Bowl or any of those pools, but we did a pool for like the Royal Rumble of put $5 in a pot and random numbers you get. You don't pick the guy who you think is going to win, but you don't know when each guy is going to enter. It'll seem likely that, say, John Cena will win, but you don't know what number he's going to be, and you randomly draw numbers. So it makes it kind of a gambling thing in that way. But no, I've never really got into the sports betting thing either. Yeah,
my gambling was always poker. That was where I used to play with friends. When I was in Vegas for some ungodly reason, I would hit the tables for at least an afternoon. But I also realized there was going to have to be a hard limit on that because it could get real dangerous if I ever got too into it.
That gambling and the poker thing too, I have felt the itch while playing we were talking about it off mic, that Marvel Snap, a video game, because on phones, the app, I shouldn't say, I'm talking like an old man, like the video game when I mean
on the
app.
telephone.
They have games on your phone?
Yes, yeah. But it is like, I've played it, and it's the not just the experience of wanting to to pull the right card of like, come on, show me an ace, but also that you're thinking like the randomization of so many elements feel like waiting for the slot machine to show the one thing you want to see. Like there's a lot of random elements.
I prefer the skill and masterful storytelling of Bayonetta 3 in my life.
It's up to you whether you dodge that or not and enter which time. Not some random thing. This is a big episode. Really, the only reason they wrote this episode is because many of the writers are degenerate gamblers on the show.
There were no phones in the writer's room because it was 1992. So to pass the time, you would either write in the dictionary, draw little cartoons, underline things, eat, or gamble.
Yes.
And those were the things you did in the writer's room of the early 90s. And some more preliminary stuff. This episode, for the longest time, because I'm not a football fan, maybe until 10 years ago, I thought this episode was named after the movie Zorba the Greek, having never seen it. I assume there was some connection. Like, is it about a gambler? I don't know, maybe. But then I found out about Jimmy the Greek. We'll talk about him later. But this episode is actually very heavily based on a Mary Tyler Moore episode from season 5 called The System. And on the commentary, Al Jean makes a joke that when this episode was pitched, everyone in the room was very aware of that episode because it had just aired like 15 years before they were pitching it. So imagine, like, you probably remember something that aired in 2006. That's where they were in 1991.
And James L. Brooks was showrunner on that season. Like Bob shared with me the episode, and I skimmed around it in the credits. James L. Brooks is like co-executive producer on the show, and they say like, oh yeah, Brooks didn't even remember it at first. Like, oh, is this did we do this on the Mary Tyler Moore show? And it's basically like if Al Jean now would say to somebody, do we do a monorail episode of The Simpsons?
Yeah.
I think that sounds right. Like,
in this case, Lou Grant is the Homer figure, and Ted Knight's the character's name.
Yeah.
He is the outsider Lisa figure who figures out a system to sports betting. But in the case of the Mary Tyler Moore episode, it destroys the art of betting for Lou because it's just like stats and math, and he becomes very despondent over that. So that's all on YouTube. It's very easy to find if you want to watch The System, this is very loosely based on it, but it's some core ideas from that episode.
It also definitely feels like the writers venting their anger towards each other over gambling. Like, that's why they have Mary Tyler Moore in the episode says to Lou Grant, like, this thing is completely distracting you and it's not making you happy. Like, you're miserable. You have an addiction. And it's about them trying to get less into gambling. Oh, and that one, they lose big at the Super Bowl. They do not win at the Super Bowl. So it's instead of the happy ending that this one has.
And one final preliminary thing is that we covered it a bit the first time we talked about this episode, but upon this revisit and doing research, I realized how much of this episode is a parody of the pregame show The NFL Today.
Yes.
So
CBS. Yeah.
You don't need to know that, but when you find out how much is based on that, it's astounding. Something that's still on the air, but the form of it that they're parodying was the form that was contemporary at the time.
Yeah, Alex, you a regular viewer of the NFL Today on CBS?
So yes, as someone who does still watch football, I inevitably catch both the CBS and the Fox pregame game ones because those are the ones that are on throughout most of the day. And yes, the current version, which I believe has Phil Simms and, oh God, I'm trying to remember. Tony Romo is the main commentator now, so he's not on there. Oh God, I don't know. It's a bunch of old guys. It's the ones that aren't on Fox, which is like Terry Bradshaw and all those dudes.
Right.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with those guys, in part because they did a Simpsons cartoon once.
Yes.
Yeah, but
I mean, for all I knew when I was 10, Smooth Jimmy Apollo was just a new character they invented. And also, I didn't understand Lisa referencing Phyllis George until yesterday.
yeah, me too. Yeah. You know, there were several good 30th anniversary things this year on the episode. And in the Forbes one, which had a long interview with Al Jean about the episode, he makes the point of like, well, yeah, we, as gamblers especially, they were all glued to NFL Today and these other shows because you couldn't just look up the stats. You couldn't just look up like, well, it's the, you know, in my market, I can't watch the game I bet on, but it's the third quarter. What's going on? You had to watch shows like NFL Today or just updates during the game to know what was going on, right?
Well, that, and also like that was the heyday of the sports bar where people would go and every single game would be on TV because they bought, you know, the insane satellite TV package or whatever, which is why I think the sports bar has kind of fallen on hard times as a concept because NFL Red Zone exists and these, you know, various cable packages where you can just watch everything exist and the internet exists. Like there are a million ways you can watch all these games, some of them legal, some of them not. But the idea of you having to go to a place where they give you jalapeno poppers and you sit there and you eat your goddamn jalapeno poppers and watch the football like a good little boy, it's not really necessary anymore.
This is ruining society. People don't socialize as much anymore because of that.
Nobody socialized at those bars.
No, just fixed on the TV, eyes straight ahead. Before we get into it, Rich Moore directed this episode, one of the best directors on the show. He'll go on to be supervising director on The Critic and on Futurama. He would direct Wreck-It Ralph and Zootopia, I believe. Big wig in the animation industry. This episode was a challenge for him. It's a good-looking episode, but in this episode, Homer Simpson is on the couch for about 70% of it. Occasionally, they let him go to Moe's to like collect money, but he is really fixated on this couch. This episode is so domestic, but it still is not boring to watch.
And he successfully avoids having to have his team animate football being played. Like, it's amazing.
And I have a theory about that. Number one, it's hard to animate football games being played. But number two, they don't know who's going to be in the Super Bowl 9 months ahead of time when they're writing and recording this. So they know no matter what they do, the teams will have to be 80-yard in at the last second, which is why only a few times you see Lisa say the names of the teams who are playing in that Super Bowl. So it would be weird if that is the one game you don't see animated.
Yeah,
if all the other teams that were, you know, predetermined, if those games had all been animated, it would be weird if the pivotal game was not. So I think there was a executive level decision made that we don't see any game being played because we can't actually animate the final game because we don't know. We can replace dialogue. We can't replace colors yet. This is not digital animation.
Right.
And it's one of those things where like it actually kind of fits the theme of the episode because the football is actually the least interesting part of what is going on there for everyone involved. Like Homer's whole thing is that like, yes, thrill of the game, what have you, but there's this extra thing on top that really makes it sweet, and it's taking Moe's money.
I think too, you know, the NFL is very strict about their, I mean, even compared to other professional sports leagues, they are very strict. So the Simpsons, even under parody, I would figure their lawyers told them like, you do not draw a single NFL logo on this thing.
You can do the
What
colors,
happened-
that's it.
Yeah, I assume that when the Denver Broncos are on Homer's lawn, they just have the colors and not the logo, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, one, we noticed that when they had Magic Johnson in this season, they clearly made a deal with the Lakers to get the official Lakers logo in the show. But, you know, this was before, it's actually a very interesting time when this aired too, because this is a couple years before Fox gets the NFL, so they can take shots at the NFL or like joke around in a way. They have the freedom of not worrying about scaring off or pissing off their incredibly important content partner that now literally everybody will like billions just to have some football on your channel.
Yeah, and it's
I'm looking at the footage now, and the Denver Broncos do have their logos on their helmets in that scene, and you only move twice. So
Well.
either they paid for it or they didn't care.
well, they got.
Oh, sorry, Alex.
So they would have gotten the NFL that episode's what, 3 years after this?
Oh, yeah. I guess it's when they had the NFL then.
Yeah, so they would have
they
had it by
permission. Yeah.
And then not long after that, Pat Summerall and John Madden just appearing on the show.
Right, yes. Alex, too, you've seen in like football video games even back then, the big deal was like Madden got the NFL and other other things didn't. Tecmo Bowl. Well, actually, Tecmo Bowl did get the NFL.
It had some of the
time,
NFL. I don't know if it had all the player names, but yeah, it definitely had some. I mean, there were other, like, there was like the Joe Montana game that came around. There was a few others. The NFL license was not exclusive. It was just that no one really paid too much attention to the other games that weren't Madden until 2K came around.
But yeah, Bob, you're right. This is a great view thematically of how gamblers view football. Is just like it is a series of stats or results that you gamble upon. It doesn't mean anything. Like whoever the player is, whether they broke a passing record or whatever, that's nothing. Like that's nothing.
The men telling you the score is more important than the men playing the game on the field.
Very much so, yes. And yeah, on the history of this one, I want to give a tip of the hat because he also was a nice dude to me on Twitter as well. Alan Siegel, who wrote for The Ringer an oral history of it earlier in 2022. He did a really good job. He talked to lots of the folks, writers and actors on it. Had a lot of insight. Also, because it was for The Ringer, it had a sports insight that gave me, a viewpoint I don't know as well. And also when I talked to Alan, I said, the only thing, like over DM, I just mentioned him. The only thing that it doesn't have is the stuff about like Lisa predicting it correctly, and he all those years in a row. And he says like, well, yeah, the editor didn't think he knew that people were going to know that was missing, but he's like, the editor thought it didn't matter, I think was the thing. Which no, you need every single that editor a fool.
That's why podcast better than the written word.
But
we include everything.
But I definitely have cribbed a few things from Alan's great article. But they already tell enough of the fun story behind the scenes on the commentary as well about it. But it is the Simpsons writing staff in the golden age was, especially as headed up by Jim Brooks and Sam Simon. I don't get the sense that I think this was games played without Mac Rating. I do not think Mac Rating was a sports gambler. But James L. Brooks and Sam Simon, the two other co-developers of the show with Groening, huge gambling addicts. Like they love gambling on football as well. Jeff Martin in that Ringer article tells the story that when he started there, Sam Simon's like, oh, so you like football? Which he really meant, do you like gambling? And then Jeff Martin said to him, I'm more of a baseball guy. And he said that he felt Sam Simon instantly judged him and was like, ugh. Baseball guy, come on, like you can't gamble on that as well. Jake Hogan, one of the co-writers of the story, tells that they, before the Super Bowl, in the year before this at the Super Bowl, as a group, they all flew down to Vegas, and he says that he saw one writer lose a small fortune on Super Bowl 24 betting on Denver, which is why I think Homer has the line, stupid Denver, in this episode. This is a quote Hogan says about this. The writer's room is where I learned to not give a shit about football teams and just give a shit about the spread. That's what he said they learned. And that Mike Reese is also very funny on the commentary because he's the one guy who's like, I don't give a crap about your football stuff. This is stupid to me.
It made every day 2 hours longer.
Yeah. And I also want to say that our pal and previous guest on the show, Tim Kalpakis of the Birthday Boys sketch group and the Sloppy Boys, he worked at Gracie Films about 12 years ago. One of his main jobs was delivering the envelope of money to the winners of this football pool. He has handled the manila envelope full of money. He says he has dropped off that money to stars like Josh Duhamel and Adam Sandler.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, well, Adam Sandler, why is he in the Jim Brooks pool? I forgot that Adam Sandler is the star of the Jim Brooks directed Spanglish from 2004.
Oh, you're right.
Good buddies.
Yeah. So if you see a PA, there's a good chance they could have a sack of money on them.
Now I'm telling people to case the guys. If you see a PA drive away from the Gracie offices, they've got thousands of dollars in an envelope.
Find their names in the credits and just travel after them. Go.
I guess for guys like Adam Sandler, especially when you're that rich, money is meaningless. But if you bet well, like it's like, oh well, this is much better money than just like $80 million from Netflix. Or
yeah.
whatever.
What's the worst thing he's gonna have to do? Make another Grown Ups?
And it does make me wonder: is this why so many of these writers stay here this long? Is that they have had these gambling debts?
They all owe Jim Brooks money.
Oh, and also he mentioned that George Meyer, that was how Tim Kalpakis got to meet George Meyer, was dropping off the money to him one time. And which he also mentions George Meyer lives in Wilt Chamberlain's home, which he got to see, which is the old home that Wilt Chamberlain had. The famous one that had the stories of the hot tub reveal in the living room that you like press a button and it opens up and like, ooh, a hot tub right there in the living room.
Now I need to know who owns that house now.
I think Meyer probably still owns it.
Good. If I did, I would.
But I actually sent an email to Tim just asking, like, hey, can I mention this again on the show that you dropped off the money at the Gracie Phillips thing? He's like, yeah. He said when he dropped it off to Josh Duhamel, he got to meet Fergie because he was married to her at the time.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. So you get to meet the stars when you're dropping off all the Simpsons football money. Also, another thing to mention about the behind the scenes on this one that Kogan and Waldarski wrote is technically, and it's totally deserved, Yardley Smith won an Emmy for this episode for her performance in this episode. But I found out the 1992 Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Voiceover Performance, it was the first time they gave away that award to actual voice acting in a cartoon. It basically is the Simpsons award they invented. And because of that, they simply gave 6 Emmys to different members of the Simpsons group.
Oh,
incredible.
Because
Yeah.
I thought only Marsha Wallace won for Bart the Lover. I completely forgot that Yardley, or maybe I'm just learning this for the first time, Yardley Smith, I mean, did the entire cast just get Emmys for voice acting?
Not the entire cast, but it was
Okay.
like definitely Nancy, Yardley, Marsha, and also Jackie Mason as well.
Right, yeah.
And I think Dan and Julie, but it's also named for different episodes. Like Bart won for Nancy Cartwright won for Separate Vocations. Yardley's was for this. So, but they did win as a group, not. So yeah, that's how it's listed on the Emmy page. But yeah,
no Hank and Harry. They tried.
I think they got him later, but yes, but technically speaking, as far as it goes, yes, Yardley Smith did win an award, an Emmy, for her performance in this episode, and it's totally deserved, I'd say. I think so.
Oh yeah, this is a great Lisa episode.
And but I guess this episode, the title. Well, I mean, his character shows up very early in this, so why don't we talk about Jimmy the Greek now?
Yes, Jimmy the Greek Snyder, a mainstay on the NFL Today for 12 years, and then unfortunately he was the late 80s version of canceled when he said unfortunate comments about black athletes on an interview. And he thought he wasn't being racist, where he's like, no, these are actually compliments. But you can look up what he
powerful.
said.
You know what? I can
Yes.
imagine, just based on that description, the exact thing he probably said. And yeah.
Yes, yeah. Because it's key to a thing I'll play in a second. He definitely talks specifically about the thigh muscles of black men being a certain way. And yeah, it was some eugenics-y type stuff.
Yeah, just get those brain calipers out while you're at it.
Yes.
And I think it was the first time I realized, Smooth Jimmy Apollo is a Greek god. That's very clever.
Yes, yeah. It is. It's really smart. And so they're making fun of a guy who, when they put him in this episode, they're parroting a dude who got canceled 4 years ago, who's off TV at this point and is like a memory.
He's a memory, but that kind of personality, if not specifically him, was definitely a thing that permeated that like sports coverage and especially football coverage of that era. Like if it wasn't him, there were other guys, especially on like local news, that would do similar things. So it was still a concept that existed. It's just I think he was the most famous version of it.
And I read that part of his appeal too was because back then, again, we talk about how insane it feels now, but back then the NFL wanted to have no relationship to gambling at all. They did not want to say the odds or anything. And so part of the like dangerous fun of seeing Jimmy the Greek is his name is like he's a character out of the Godfather, which had just come out in theaters in the 70s. He's like, oh yeah, I lived in Las Vegas a bunch, he'd say, and he'd have funny euphemisms and he'd just wink at the camera like that was part of the dance of the fun of the guy.
Yeah.
I saw that the reason he was even asked that was it was like for a Martin Luther King Day event too. Yes.
The timing was very unfortunate, and in his head he thought, no, this is a compliment.
Yeah. It's
I'd like it if someone praised my thigh muscles. I mean,
Oh boy.
and yes, Bob shared with me a sketch I had not seen before, and if I'd have seen it on Comedy Central reruns as a kid, I wouldn't have got it because I did not know the context of it or NFL Today.
I didn't see it either until looking it up. And what's interesting is that Phil Hartman is playing Smooth Jimmy Apollo in this episode, and the caricature, the voice caricature he's doing is basically his Sinatra. But in this SNL sketch, we're going to hear Phil Hartman doing a fairly accurate impression of Jimmy the Greek that is closer to his actual voice. Nothing like Sinatra at all.
So this is from the sketch that aired like I think literally a week after he was taken off of the show, called NFL Today Black Pride, which is very funny. That it's basically the concept concept is that the character is they have allowed Jimmy the Greek back on the show, and he has overcompensated by learning a ton about Black history for Black History Month.
Oh my.
Elway's been given a free ride all his life. He's got those big thighs that go high into his back, which, by the way, is something you see in players both black and white and does not predominate in any particular race. But getting back to Elway, Brent, this is just the culmination of centuries of planning. I mean, back in Ireland, during the Middle Ages, the English would take the big white Irish guy and breed him with the big white Irish
Very
man.
interesting, Greek. Very interesting, Greek. So you're taking Washington then?
Well, Ben, I couldn't think of a better way to kick off Black History Month.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Yeah, so a very different voice, but it's more accurate to the actual guy. But I think that's probably why they have him in this episode, because he's Troy McClure for about 15 seconds. But up front, he is Smooth Jimmy Apollo, Phil Hartman.
It's so good, man. In that sketch, Kevin Nealon is parodying Brent Musburger, and here it's Harry Shearer doing it.
Brett Gunselman, which is a great
yes,
name. That's the parody name.
Yeah.
The Simpsons will be right back.
You don't have to wait until Sunday to see the big game.
We're live from Super Bowl 26.
It's happening Thursday on The Simpsons.
Bye-bye, belt.
And everybody's got football fever.
It's like there's some kind of bond between us.
Don't miss the thrill, the chill,
There's one loyal fan wearing nothing but a G-string.
and the spectacular halftime show.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
Go!
It's football fever Thursday on The Simpsons.
His kids are buying new clothes. He's eating in the finest restaurant.
Hello, I'm Mark Hood. I'll be your waiter.
Hello, I'm Homer. I'll be your customer.
Homer Simpson is on a roll.
You lucky son of a...
What's his secret?
Who do you think's gonna win?
The Dolphins?
No.
Gotcha, 50 beans on Miami.
His daughter is calling the shots.
Lisa and I have been gambling on pro football.
Homer, gambling is illegal.
Oh, only in 48 states.
The Simpsons, Thursday at 8 on Fox 29.
America has football fever.
I'm glad some people could resist the big game.
Oh my God, I forgot the game. And the Simpsons are getting in on the action. Presenting the super spectacular Simpsons football special.
Fox is taking this NFL thing way too far, man.
Shut up, boy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the break. Hope you're feeling some football fever just like we are, especially thanks to our great guest this week, Alex Navarro from Nextlander. Check out all of the awesome stuff he's doing. I always love Alex and all the guys at Nextlander's work on Game of the Year stuff. So please check out all of the cool stuff Alex does and follow him on Twitter. We love having him on. Also, if you enjoy the Talking Simpsons podcast, you should know it's only possible thanks to the support of people at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Those subscribers are how me and Bob do this as our full-time job, and we couldn't be happier. And for those $5 a month, those folks don't just get to know they're making us happy, but also they get a ton of exclusives, like monthly episodes of Talking Futurama and Talk King of the Hill, us covering those series one episode a month. We just started season 4 of Futurama, and we're about to start season 3 of King of the Hill. And also every week for the rest of 2022, you will get a new episode of Blabbing About Batman, the animated series, our second season of me and Bob talking about our favorite episodes of Batman, the animated series. Every Friday, you'll get a new one of those, but only if you are a subscriber at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. So please check it all out for yourself. But if you want a perk as nice as Meryl Streep's versatility, then you should sign up at the premium level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, because you get access to a monthly bonus podcast in addition to all of the things I just mentioned that you get at the $5 level. That is the What a Cartoon movie podcast. Me and Bob talking about an animated feature film, crazy in depth, once a month, often for over 4 hours, sometimes over 6 hours in some extreme awesome cases. And this month, you'll get to hear us talk about, for the first time, a Leica film, Paranorman from 2012. The month before that, we talked about the 1980s traumatic toy commercial, Transformers the movie. And there's a giant back catalog with so many awesome ones, including this year of us covering Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That's the 6.5 hour long podcast. Just so much awesome stuff there. You can hear over 250 hours of exclusive What a Cartoon Movie podcast, in addition to all that $5 stuff, if you sign up at that $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons today. But yes, the episode begins with something I think that got cut off a bunch in syndication, but I love it. Rich Moore and his team were shown the 80s opening to NFL Today, which is like wire work, early CGI of a guy running down the field, and they imitated in two-dimensional animation and have the guy get decapitated and his head flies through the air towards the it just looks
why
so
we're here.
Great.
It's what the sport is.
Yeah. When I was a kid and I'd see my dad watching shows like this, I would watch the CGI opening, and then when it's over, it's like, well, now I just got to watch old guys talk. Where'd the cartoons go?
Now I just have to watch regular head injuries.
I love Homer in ultimate snacking mode. Everything right next to him. His dead eyes looking forward as he shoves, like he knows where each different heavily salted snack treat is.
With all the vice in this episode, I'm really surprised there's not more drinking.
Yeah, pretty light on drinking.
Yeah.
It's so well animated. Just on a cycle, you could just make a gif of that could cycle endlessly of Homer just shoving all the different food in his mouth over and over again. As Marge gives him a warning, this is when he almost has the heart attack he will have in season 4. But first, let's hear from Smooth Jimmy Apollo.
And now with his picks for today's games, the man who's right 52% of the time, Smooth Jimmy Apollo.
Thank you, Brett. Our first game today, Denver and New England, is too close to call.
Oh.
But if you're one of those compulsive types who just has to bet, well, I don't know, Denver.
Woohoo! Denver! Yeah!
Moe's Tavern, where the peanut bowl is freshened hourly.
Mo, I'd like to bet $20 on Denver.
I think I can provide that service. Chief Wiggum, could you hand me that little black book?
Oh, sure thing, Mo. I was just using it as a toaster.
20 big ones on Denver.
Pleasure doing business with you, HS.
All right, Denver. Justify my love.
At the end of 13 seconds of play, it's New England 7, Denver nothing.
No!
Look, Dad. I made a modest studio apartment for my Malibu Stacy doll. This is a kitchen. This is where she prints her weekly feminist newsletter. Dad, you're not listening to me.
Lousy, stupid Denver.
That feminist newsletter now, you replace that with feminist podcast, her weekly feminist podcast. That's where she'd record it.
Can't even be a blogger anymore.
But so I got to say, as a little kid, I felt no tension about watching it. Now, as an adult, watching Homer's heart nearly explode, I was like, oh, this worries me more. I see now this is why the middle-aged guys writing this show wrote these jokes.
Great Foley on just the blood being forced through, like a torrent of blood. It's like a bucket being emptied. And this brought me back because my stepdad did not have a heart attack, but he was a football gambler because he was part of a gambling ring. Ring makes it sound so salacious. A gambling group at his workplace. And every year he would bring home like the big spreadsheet with like where you put all your bets and everything. And he'd be following it as he gambled. It was kind of fun because, it is a thing daddies do to make sports more interesting, is gambling. It went on for a few years. And then like one year I was like, hey, where's the gambling sheet? And they had to tell me, oh, the guy running it was arrested because it was illegal in 1994 to do that. So yeah.
Wow, man.
So I guess someone narked on him.
That's sad, boy.
It's terrible.
It's a victimless crime.
Yeah. I mean, the only victim's Mo.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also love Homer's delivery. Like, a little beer will put out that fire. Like, he doesn't think about it for 1 second. Oh, and then the joke, again, it doesn't make as much sense now because it's so, the joke is that it's very upfront that he's helping people gamble. But I just love, he's like, but I guess if you're one of those compulsive types who has to gamble, like, that's such a funny funny line.
Well, and Homer's just elation at the idea of, you just said a name. That's all I need.
You told me who to bet on. I'll do it right now. Yeah. And Wiggum's got his black hair back. I feel like this is the last time we're seeing Wiggum with his black hair.
I think so. Yeah. And it's a rare appearance, at least the name of Smitty.
Oh, right. He's written
Smitty's name. Last seen in Smitty, Safe and Up in the German episode.
I like how Homer says 20 big ones when he means $20. Not
that's the biggest he has to work with.
You know, it reminded me of like, oh yeah, this episode, Homer basically, which is like, it's not that it's nothing, especially in 1992 money, but he makes maybe like $500 off of this whole thing, I think, in total. Lisa is trying to get some attention from Homer, sharing with I just love Lisa's whole world she made for her Malibu Stacy, which like this is a Barbie doll essentially. And she makes a modest studio apartment for her where she prints a feminist newsletter. Like that's so great that's the vision Lisa has for her Malibu Stacy.
I mean, her thing with Malibu Stacy is always imagining her as very much like the avatar for the life she wants for herself. And as much as, you know, the fancy Malibu Stacy stuff is nice and everything, she wants Malibu Stacy to be the feminist icon that she envisions. And this is, this is obviously laying the groundwork for when, Malibu Stacy goes completely in the other direction. But it's it's a nice little character touch.
When the friction between her and Malibu Stacy can take no more, just like Homer's heart, it finally explodes. I also think it's very adorable how Maggie's bathed in the sink in the next shot. It's really cute. And so Marge wants to help Lisa connect with Homer.
Get that a shoebox house. Lisa, you're so clever.
Why isn't Dad ever interested in anything I do?
Well, do you ever take an interest in anything he does?
No. Well, we used to have burping contests, but I outgrew it.
Well, if you want to get closer to him, then maybe you should bridge the gap. I do it all the time. I pretend I'm interested in looking at power tools, going to those silly car chase movies, and some things I'll tell you about when you're older. Do you understand?
I think so.
Bart!
What?
Oh, look at that. No, why did you do that?
Wouldn't it be fun if we watched the game together?
Okay, just don't say anything and sit down over there. Over. Lisa, please, I can't hear the announcer.
He said Denver just fumbled.
Don't!
I love Homer's like sobbing. He's like one quarter into the game, he's just like, oh,
Why?
It's so good. But okay, what does Homer like that Marge doesn't like? I wonder.
I'm going to assume it's 1992. Marge, very religious to the point where she's against gambling. I think anything outside of standard missionary sex.
Sure.
And that's all I'll say, really.
I would figure oral. I would bet it's a joke about oral. That's my guess.
I would say a finger in the bum.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. But yeah.
I don't think Homer and Marge would have that kind of imagination.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe it happened
90s.
Accidentally once. Who can say?
Yes.
I guess you're right. With Marge, 1992 Marge, cowgirl might be a bit much for her.
Yeah.
She's not into, look, we could get lewder, but I mean, it's a very dudes writing a script in the 90s that it's like the moral of the story is women need to like things more than a father or husband likes. Give them a chance.
Yeah, and of course women hate sex.
Yes.
We all know that.
Also that, yeah. I'd much prefer when they write it that Marge loves snuggling. Like she wants to have sex with Homer as much as Homer wants to have sex with her most times.
Weird little detail here I will just throw out regarding the game which Homer loses very badly on. I believe the score is 55-10 New England Patriots. So there's a thing I love about, and this is not gambling. This is just a fun, weird side thing about football these days. John Boyce of the of SB Nation and all that stuff. I don't remember if he invented it or if he just sort of like popularized this concept. Scoreagami. The idea is that there are unique scores in football the way that there are not in other sports because of the way the math works out. And there's a bot on Twitter that tracks whether a score that happens in an NFL game is the first time it's ever happened. And so there's a weird dedicated subset of people online who are desperate to see Scoreagami whenever it happens. And I was curious about this. Had 55-10 ever actually happened? And in fact, it had, to the Denver Broncos.
Whoa.
The first time 55-10 ever happened was the 49ers versus the Broncos in January 28th, 1990. Brady, and the Broncos were definitely on the wrong side of that one.
Wow, man. Boy, I wonder if that's like, it could even be a reference thing, because this was written in 91.
I bet someone lost bad on that game.
I mean, when you lose on a game like that, you probably don't forget that score.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's why I didn't connect with football, because the points were so weird. Just like,
Yeah.
wait, a touchdown's worth 6, and then there's like an extra point if you kick it, but then if you kick it through the goal independently, it's another thing, and then there's a 2-point conversion for a while. What's going on
They still
here?
have that, and then there's also 2 points if you get sacked in your own end zone, that the other team gets 2 points for that. It's a mess. It's a whole mess.
We need a Mario Party star system for football games.
The only fair scoring system.
I wouldn't know any of these rules if I didn't play Blitz. Like NFL Blitz in my high school days, it's how I learned any rules of football. And half those rules are not the rules of football.
No,
like
you can't hit people after the whistle. They don't encourage that.
I mean, it's fun to do in a game, obviously, but not to when a video game character can't get CTE.
Yeah. Do you remember that brief period where they brought Blitz back and they went all the way in the other direction when they were literally doing Mortal Kombat X-ray shots of injuries you were getting?
Yes, I remember seeing Lawrence Taylor promoting it, I think it was, too.
Yes.
Just to get,
that is the correct football player to get to promote that game.
I remember I didn't review it, but in our in me and Bob's previous life as game reviewers, the guy who was reviewing it at our website, he was like, "Look, this is the X-ray move on a testicle rupturing in the game."
That was the selling point.
Also, when she mentioned silly car chase movies, I could not think of in life today, many romantic partners had to go to a Fast and the Furious film. I even made my husband go. He'd never seen a Fast and the Furious before when the John Cena one came out, and I was like, come on, we gotta see it. John Cena's in this one. It did make no sense to him.
Yeah, that's a rough one to go in on if you don't know the deep and textured lore of Fast and Furious, which I'm only half kidding about that.
Oh no, it's a dense lore of those those films for sure. So Yardley Smith talks about this a little on the commentary, but she is way more clear about this in The Ringer. She did not, when she first saw that scene in the script of Homer telling her to move and move and move, she thought it was too mean. She thought it was way, way too mean. Here's what she said in the Ringer interview this year. It was one of the first times I feel like Homer was really not nice to Lisa, and in that moment she had no recourse, no retort. I was like, this is fucked up. It's not okay. I really get my hackles up about it, she said, even to this day. But she feels it's pretty earned by the end of it, at least. Or she still loves the end, but yeah. They then on the commentary talk about how, like, oh yeah, you could never write a scene where Homer strangles Lisa.
Yeah.
Like, that would never work.
I was thinking that Homer is more actively aggressive towards Bart, but passive aggressive towards Lisa, where he just tells her, well, he doesn't say this, but he can't strangle her, so he's like, don't talk and get as far away from me as possible, and then we can exist in the same space, but that's it.
Like, he has a different negative relationship with each child. He strangles Bart, he sort of, like, actively pushes away at annoyance at Lisa, and then just forgets Maggie exists.
Also, it's very good dad energy of like, fine. Like, he's just like, I guess if you want to sit next to me. Ugh. Though for me as a kid, I did not watch football with my dad, but I did hate going clothes shopping. I was very bad at doing it.
My God. Yeah, I mean, I was raised by women until I was like 10, and I was taken to a lot of clothes stores because babysitters and daycares are expensive, so you're coming along for every ride. Sometimes you can stay at home. Don't tell anyone we let you, though. But oftentimes it was like, well, I played under every clothes rack. I've read every tag. What do I do? Which is why I'm so jealous of every kid with an iPad. Yeah. I couldn't just dial up Finger Family or Baby Shark or whatever and entertain myself. I had to look for things in a store full of blouses.
Yeah.
It was a dark time.
You get dragged around by your mom and I think this is, in early Simpsons, this is some of their best stuff when they're just like, hey, do you remember when you were a kid and how you hated going clothes shopping? And like, I feel bad, obviously, of being the like, Mom, can we go kid to my mom who was just, she's got to buy you new clothes for school. That's what that has to happen. Like, and I was getting in the way of it with her, I think. But also this taught me you could melt toys as a kid too. I had never tried to melt a toy before, but then when I saw Bart do it, I was like, oh, you you could do that.
Yeah, my friends were more blowing up toys types, so it was a lot of firecrackers and G.I. Joes, less melting of army men.
Well, you see, I was more of a toy boy, as we've said many times on this show. Like, that's why army men you could melt and destroy, but like, I liked even the crappiest G.I. Joe. I would not want to blow him up because then I couldn't play with him anymore. That was the downside. But yes, Marge decides she's gonna hang out with Bart all day since Lisa's hanging out with Homer, which this is one of those rare B plots that is entirely contained to one act and is not called back upon at all the rest of the whole episode.
I like it because otherwise it would be too claustrophobic. This entire act is just Homer watching TV. And they kind of need some fresh air, basically, in this first act.
Homer learns is surprised to learn that if somebody's right 52% of the time, they're wrong 48%. That's when Homer's given some options on what to bet on next. And first he is shown the lock of the week, which I love, and then the shoe of the week, the shoe in as well, which are both great arguments. Just, I feel like I've put that logic on mulling over things before in my life too. It's a pretty big lock, like just totally meaningless. But though Smooth Jimmy is right, Miami does win. He tells him to pick Miami. It's what Lisa picks too, and he's right.
Keeps it nice and even.
Yeah.
In this Frink joke, I do like it, but I feel like a year later the machine would fall over and crush him. I'm surprised it doesn't now.
I think the only joke is how long they stay on him hitting it. Like, Homer changes the channel. The cameraman doesn't cut away. Like, just for seconds on national television, Frink is kicking a machine on TV. But yes, then we get another reference to another guy who his fall from grace was different from Jimmy the Greeks, but we get a little reference to Pete Rose.
You want some of this, don't you?
Yeah!
Well, you need to know the winners, and I know the winners. So call me now. Whoa! $5 for the first minute, $2 for each additional minute. You have reached the coach's hot
line.
line.
Yeah, lay it on me, Coach.
In the game of Miami versus
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Come on. Don't you realize this is costing me money?
We must consider many things. The wind.
Oh, not the wind.
Is blowing out of the west.
Oh.
At 5
miles per hour.
Knots.
Oh, this is ridiculous. What am I supposed to do? Lisa, who do you think's going to win? The Bengals or the Dolphins?
I don't know. The Dolphins?
Good.
That's one of like the funniest moments in the whole series there. Just Homer saying Cincinnati.
I mean, it's obvious, but the team playing in Cincinnati because it takes him the longest to say. So I think that was decided after they wrote that joke. Like, let's make it Cincinnati. It takes forever to say.
What has the most syllables?
Yeah.
Well, also that's where Pete Rhodes' Reds are from too. So it fits there. But I just love the way it's drawn to be Pete Rose or a guy in a Reds outfit anyway. It doesn't really look like Pete Rose.
I thought the performance and the drawing looked like Tommy Lasorda.
Definitely.
Because he was a pitchman for a lot of things back in the late 80s, early 90s, including Ultra Slim Fast.
Right, yes. Yeah. And Sega Genesis.
Yeah. And there was a critic joke about him.
Now they call me Stinky. Yeah, but this is also pulled from real life. This is from the Ringer piece as well. George Meyer said, the slow talking run was inspired by an actual shady tip line that Sam Simon called. Sam was an alchemist who could turn real life frustration into comedy gold. So that's, he actually suffered through that. One of my favorite things this time watching it was seeing what a great joke it was that we have this slow thing. He says everything as slow as possible. When Homer thinks he's going to say miles per hour, which the joke would be, he'd say miles per hour. He instead says knots, the faster way to say something, but more confusing.
And Homer's more frustrated that he couldn't guess the right word.
Yes. Yeah. That's just so great. And also just is like, don't you know this is costing me money? Like, what a great stupid thing.
God, we all at some point in our lives probably called at least 1-900 number, whether for help or for, various other reasons, I assume.
Yes, just going like, come on, speed it up. It's costing me money.
The Nintendo helpline people, they weren't drawing it out like that.
Yeah, because they were all free. That's, you've seen the footage of those people back then that they just have the list there.
They would talk to lonely, fatherless children like me.
Yep.
Tell you how to beat Ganon. Homer calls in his bet. Then we also also see that though Moe is taking small bets from Homer, he's taking hundreds or even thousands of dollars of bets from Krusty and Mel.
Somehow Mel's a more generous gambler.
Yeah, I guess he's more of a degenerate even.
I wasn't sure if that was Krusty deciding to make him bet 2,000 instead of 200, or if that was actually Mel is the biggest degenerate gambler of all.
Well, you know what? This time I caught it. Mel squeaks his horn twice, which is his sign of like, that means two, bet too large on this one. You know what? This is the big difference time makes. But in a few seasons after this, in season 6, Krusty would be doing his gambling entirely with Fat Tony.
Right.
Yeah.
It got that big, but they hadn't figured that Fat Tony would be a regular in the series at this point. Also, I think they have Mel do the horn honks because this is right before they decided he's going to talk now. Like he does say something in Radio Bart. He sings in the Radio Bart song, but he hasn't actually said a line yet other than that.
So we don't fully know about his Shakespearean Juilliard training or anything.
Yeah, I believe we're going to hear that in Black Widower.
Okay.
Yeah, all I can be is myself. So yes, I recently went mattress shopping and had Bart's kind of thing too, like, whatever. This one, yes, I picked it. Can we go now? Though I actually agree with Marge's taste in these clothes. I think I would, not the bow tie, wouldn't wear that, but
absolutely
I
not.
like the shirts. Honestly.
Never trust anyone in a bow tie, ever.
They bring evil.
Yeah.
Bart could easily learn, like, he could become a hipster with these clothes in like 5 or 6 years. He's ahead of the curve. He's like got this cabana gear almost.
You're right.
Ready to go.
But he's 10 years old. He's not ready for that.
He's not ready to make the debut of this in Williamsburg. So this is where another fun line here.
Now, Bart, I think you'd look very sharp in this shirt.
Fine, get it. Let's go.
No. You have to try it on. Ooh, and this one's 50% off.
You know why these clothes are on sale, Mom? Because the people who wear them get beaten up.
Well, anyone who beats you up for wearing a shirt isn't your friend. Ooh, this looks good. Oh, and this one is very, very cute. And these, oh, look, little bow ties. And don't make that face at me.
How'd you know?
A great gag of like, your mom always knows. You know you're making the face behind it.
She always knows, and as well-meaning as she is, she will say things to you like, anyone who would beat you up over a shirt is not your friend, as if that is not the most staggeringly obvious thing to a child.
Yes. Marge thinks that it's like, oh, well, you shouldn't be friends with those people if you're beating up. Like, yeah, no, that's
not the problem.
What Marge say. Yes, yeah. Apparently, Kogan and Wolodarski said that some folks didn't get that joke, and that Matt Groening helped them get it in the episode. It is a great line. I'm glad they got it in there. Bart, while he's in hell, Homer and Lisa are having a great time here, and this is when Homer explains why people love gambling.
Touchdown, Dolphins!
All right, Dolphins!
All right, Dolphins!
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
50 big ones!
50 big ones.
Uh-oh. You see, Lisa, Daddy's friend Mo promised to give him $50 if the Dolphins won the game.
You mean you made a bet?
Well, I wouldn't call it a bet. It's a little thing daddies do to make football more exciting.
What could be more exciting than the savage ballet that is pro football?
Well, you know, you like ice cream, don't you?
Uh-huh.
And don't you like ice cream better when it's covered with hot fudge and mounds of whipped cream and chopped nuts and, ooh, those crumbled up cookie things they mash up? Crumbled up cookie things.
So gambling makes a good thing even better.
That's right! My God, it's like there's some kind of bond between us.
Homer cannot understand. They're like, wow, a bond with my daughter. This is insane. I don't understand this.
This did seem insidious in 92. We've been talking about it, though, and I think kids are trained from a young age with all the gotcha games.
Yeah.
GATCHA, by the way. The games where you do pulls every day to get, like, the random JPEGs of Spider-Man, perhaps, or an anime girl in a bikini.
Yes.
Those kind of things.
Hey, that JPEG of Spider-Man plays. He's a great card to play, Bob.
He's got a shiny logo now.
Oh God, yeah. No, yeah, I think kids are more set up for gambling than ever these days. Yeah.
When we were kids, video games had a ton of gambling in them, especially ones from Japan, where it's like, oh, you're between levels, play the slot machine, and we thought nothing of it. And it's just like I learned about gambling from playing like Vegas Stakes for the Super Nintendo,
right? Or most Mario games had, or a few Mario games had that. Yeah, Yoshi's Island, I forgot had a scratch and win segment to it. Yeah,
there was literally a Caesar's Palace NES game, wasn't there, for the Super Nintendo?
Yeah.
I think I rented it.
My favorite, and still to this day, every time there's a new Dragon Quest, I'm like, all right, where's the casino? Like, let's get into this. Though also, I just beat Yakuza 0, and that has the hobo casino in it, which also is great. Though half the game's like, look, I'm sure Mahjong is a great game. I don't know how to play it. I can't.
I have
can't
played
play
most of those games. I have never tried to learn Mahjong. I can't do it.
Or Koi Koi, or all they seem like fun games, but they're just they're very complicated for a first timer. It is a little insidious how as well how Homer explains it's like, oh, it's like ice cream, but it makes it better. That's all. It's not an addiction. It just makes a fun thing even better. Yeah.
It's like fudge and cookie crumbles and sprinkles and all these other things on top of the thing.
It's very ADR. I love Homer's like crumbled up cookie things. That's a good one. Also, how Homer just spills all his beer when he does it. He's just so excited. Like he never gets to win.
Very cruel line that Homer thinks is sweet is, my God, it's like there's some kind of bond between us.
Yeah, he's it's something he couldn't even fathom. Then we get a quick cut to Bart trying on some clothes. I had to say, we need to investigate Wee Monsieur and the people who run that place.
Yeah, it's why it only made one other appearance in season 8.
Shut down those cameras in children's dressing rooms. Like, yeah, but that's the joke. That It is gross. And Bart tells them to get bent. And also, they must have like shot that girl too. Those are shotguns are ready to go for her socks. She didn't come in with. So yes, and then Marge, in a very mom way, doesn't realize she humiliates Bart by showing everybody his underwear, and she needs to get new ones for him. It's a cute little joke. Then again, another of my all-time favorite drawings of the episode. I don't know why. Homer and Lisa counting down the thing together. The way like Lisa is, I don't know, they have like these kind of like goofy grins on their face. Like it's such a funny drawing of them counting down together. I can't fully explain it, but I love it.
Again, it's just people on a couch. They need to try to make it interesting. So I think they're going extra hard with the poses in this episode.
You know, I'm kind of grossed out seeing Homer telling Lisa to keep something a secret from Marge. Like, I don't know. Lisa likes being in on the secret. I do love Homer saying, like, you'd think that, wouldn't you? But, you know, she got a crazy
She doesn't get it, man.
Yeah. Not like me and you. It's great to gamble. See? You're seeing all the wins. It's awesome. And also, I do love their little shared laugh at getting one over on Marge. She's like, oh, what's so funny? Nothing. And this is where the Bart B plot ends very humorously, of Bart in his little bow tie and cute outfit be modeling his clothes for his friends as they're threatening to beat the shit out of him.
They're gonna kill that boy. They're gonna kill him.
Yes. Marge again doesn't understand this. So we come back from the commercial break. Homer's tucking Lisa in. He says they're gonna do it again next week, and you'll find it gets rid of the unpleasant aftertaste of church. I think also it's kind of Homer's scary love that Lisa reveals that him being nice is actually worse than being mean, because he nearly kills her, or definitely hurts her by tucking her in too much.
Yeah, it's his patented half-assed overparenting.
Yeah, cutting off the blood
That's
flow.
scary.
Marge also, says, oh, see, I told you it would work, but Marge is going to learn it can work a little too well. So then we come back to the next Sunday morning. I guess, does Lisa give him picks during the rest of the week? Like, this wasn't when I don't think in the 90s there was Thursday Night Football, but definitely Monday Night Football was around then.
Monday Night Football was around. So the dark thing about the NFL these days is that they are finding ways to sprinkle it into the rest of the week. When college football ends, they start airing games on Saturdays now, and then there's Thursday Night Football every week, which now belongs to Amazon. But yes, back then it was all Sunday and then the one Monday night game.
Oh, okay. And, so I guess for the Monday night game, he just asked for Lisa's pick on Sunday. Like, oh, and what should I bet on there too? But I like Lisa using psychology to guess that the guy is bluffing. Though I noticed the guy has the little pointy shark teeth, which that is a no-no in the style guide for Simpsons.
I also like it's Homer once again believing any information presented to him, because the guy's just saying these platitudes like, we came to win today. And he's like, yeah, he's going to win. Did you hear him? He said he's going to win.
He wouldn't lie to me. But yeah, that Lisa instantly sees through him like he's a little boy lost in a world of men. And she bets her whole college fund on it, which is $23. And then he asks her for the next 3 picks. And so, Alex, was this the predominant feeling at the time that the 49ers had pure hearts, that the Seahawks had something to prove, and that the Raiders always cheated?
The last one definitely, if not cheated, at the very least, the whole Raiders organization was definitely a little on the seedy side. Al Davis, who was the then owner, is one of the most notorious owners in all of NFL history because he is a completely capricious weirdo who would demand that his coaches draft weird people, and he had like complete creative control over like who came onto the team and stuff. And his son now runs it now that they're in Vegas, and he is continuing that tradition, not by being as weird and scummy, but by having maybe the single dumbest haircut anywhere that any rich person has ever had.
Yes.
The Seahawks back then were bad, if I remember correctly, so they definitely had something to prove. The 49ers, I'll say that Joe Montana, pretty squeaky clean as quarterbacks went, so that's not too far off.
Okay, all right. And we hear from the commentators even saying after a suspect play, the Raiders win. If this is the 91 season, were they in LA then, or were the Raiders back in Oakland? I think recall.
They were still in LA until around 94. 93 or 94, somewhere around there. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, I think they were still in LA at this point.
Now I just get sad going by on the trip. I fly out of Oakland and back and forth a lot these days, and man, every time on the road to the airport in Oakland, you drive by the empty Raiders stadium now, and it's just sad. And right next to the Oracle Arena, which is also just empty now, like no teams. It's a bummer. If they lose the A's, it's like, God, man, just blow it up.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll lose the A's. I feel like that's the one they might be able to kind of keep their grip on. But yeah, like the Raiders thing is just sad because, I mean, if you want to talk about the way that gambling has now permeated professional sports, the idea of a team being in Las Vegas, period, was like an absolute no-no for decades. Like, no matter how big the city got, no matter how much money there was to be made there, like, leagues just wouldn't touch it because they were too scared that their players would just, like, gamble on their own games and all that kind of shit. And now it's just like they built $1 billion stadium in Vegas, and now there is both an NHL team and an NFL team. And other leagues will probably bring teams there at some point.
And, before 20 years ago, it was only the XFL that put the team in there.
They were the only ones brave enough.
But yeah, so Lisa gets 3 for 3. They win again. This time, I think you hear it on the commentary. Algie notes that, like, boy, we don't show the TV at all on this. Like, they cut in future footage of the two commentators saying, really only made it for Act 3, but they have a quick cut to the NFL Today parody characters mentioning that the Raiders win, just to show you something that's on the TV instead of just, like you said, Bob, now I am feeling claustrophobic thinking of these scenes. Like, it's just always them in front of the TV, just over and over again. Which
it's the ultimate Algene and Mike Reese episode of television where it's characters doing nothing but watching television.
That's right.
And they love it.
Then Lisa decides she's going to be an extra nerd about this and goes to the library. I love, first off, that there's the crusty give a hoot, read a book in the background from season 1. I love seeing that. And also that, it's the hit place to be. It brought in one extra person, making it a madhouse at the library. And this is when Lisa goes through the card catalog. They really like these card catalog jokes for a few episodes.
I mean, the clock was ticking because I think by the mid-90s, we just had a computer system to look up books in my school.
But Lisa reading things like homoeroticism in Oddball Canadian Rules. Again, their attack on the Rouges. They already did the jokes about that earlier in the season.
And it's a weird joke to end with, but Phyllis George in football. It's not the funniest thing to end with, but I think this is the first time, like, who is Phyllis George? And she did work for the NFL Today. She was one of the first female sports broadcasters hired in the mid-70s, and she was the former wife of Robert Evans.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, I saw that she went from Robert Evans to the owner of Kentucky Fried Chicken, who would then become a governor, and of course, a former Miss America as well, and also a journalist. Yeah, but Phyllis George, she was, back in the late 70s, early 80s, being the woman on NFL Today. Like, you probably got a lot of judgments at that time, I would guess.
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, football, I think even more so than other American sports, was definitely definitely the most misogynistic as far as like whether women belonged anywhere near it during that era.
Yeah.
But these days, it's like there are women referees, there are women coaches on the sidelines, and not just on the broadcasting side of things.
So yes, Lisa's studying pays off though in the next scene. They've won again. It's the next Sunday, and despite this being the football season, they do not draw it at any time like a winter happened. This is not a winter or Christmassy episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah, Bart's playing outside in his short pants and a t-shirt. No one's wearing jackets anywhere. It is an unseasonably warm Super Bowl Sunday.
And this is before climate change has affected our winters as much now. Yeah. So yes, Lisa wins big again, and this is when Homer officially christens their new tradition.
Oh, Doctor, what a finish. The final score, Atlanta 17, Houston 13. And the lowly Falcons are flying high. Who would have thunk it?
My daughter? That's who?
Yeah, me.
Lisa, you pick the winner every time. You must have some kind of special gift.
Come on, Dad. Doesn't take a genius to realize that Houston's failed to cover their last 10 outings on away turf the week after scoring more than 3 touchdowns in a conference game.
Oh, my little girl says the cutest things.
You know, Dad, Sunday is fast becoming my favorite day of the week.
Not Sunday. Daddy-daughter day. The usual, Mo. A beer and a wad of bills.
Okay, you lucky moron. Here you go, Homer. $135.
I used to hate the smell of your sweaty feet. Now it's the smell of victory.
Oh, shut up.
Mo has nothing clever to say. He's just like, hey, just shut up. Like, enough of these funny, cute sayings.
He's wearing his famous cowboy boots from his snake handling days, I think.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that Homer is collecting money, but again, the money he's getting is like you said, $120 in another one.
Is it real quick? Who's the sportscaster voice? Is that Harry Shearer? Because he does that. I feel like that voice is in a lot of any sports related episode. It is a very good sportscaster voice.
Oh yeah. He does such a great job. Oh, doctor. Like,
it's him doing Vince Scully, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
It's called out in the Gabbo song.
That's right. I can even do Vince Scully. No, he's so great. If Harry Shearer wasn't a very, very rich comedy guy, he could definitely call games.
Absolutely.
I also love the direction of, or the next scene begins with the noise of Homer slamming open Moe's door, like just like bam.
From the sweet moment to the door slamming open in a dank bar.
Because that is really all it means to Homer. Like it isn't about spending. I mean, the moral of the story is Homer learns that he should have loved Lisa, but it is all about gambling to him. He just wants money and to succeed.
I could love my children, or I could have $135.
That's worth more. Yeah, your kids will always love you. But I'll give it to Homer that when he gets all this money, he spreads it around. You know, like he could have just spent it all on frosty chocolate milkshakes for himself, but instead he wants to show it off, taking the family to the Gilded Truffle. I also like that Marge is correct. A better way to spend that money would have been to get rid of the termites.
If he wins more than $25, he will spend it on other people. When he won the money, when he sold his stock in the German episode, he just bought a nice beer.
Yes.
That's basically it.
You know, that's not the selfish Homer you always assume. But yes, it's a really sweet scene at the Gilded Truffle. I love that Homer has a lame dad joke and everybody laughs at it. Like, it's so great. And then also that Bart asks for the freshest bottle of wine and that the waiter just has to go like, wonderful. Like you have to take it because they're paying.
Never heard that one before.
So good. And this is when Lisa also gets to request her favorite song, as far as I can tell, completely made up jazz song, not a real song. The only results for it on Google are references to this episode, the Broken Neck Blues.
Yeah, the joke is so subtle, you don't realize it's a joke, where a blues song will be like, I've got the stone in my shoe blues or whatever, some minor problem, but my neck has been broken, I've got the blues.
Yes.
It just sounds like a real blues song.
And it's football appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The CTE blues.
CTE blues. God. You know, again, in pro wrestling lately, I've had to see a few necks bend in the wrong way a couple times. They've just made me like, ugh,
I mean,
God.
if you've ever seen a Kota Ibushi match, absolutely.
God, that was a bad one. Yeah, no. And I just saw the Ricky Starks clip recently again, and I was like, God damn, how did that guy walk after that? The guy's fine now, everybody, but he did break his neck.
Listen, you should watch anime. The fights are better, and only animators are hurt.
Their injuries are off screen.
Yeah, it's all in the wrist.
by the time the next scene starts, we get to see guys getting, we see a man freezing to death with body paint, which, as Instagram has taught us now, body paint technology has improved. It breathes better, Don't use acrylic paint.
I think this guy's just using house paint.
Yeah.
And apparently Kogan and Wolodarski said this is based on a sketch they wrote for Tracy Ullman, which I haven't seen.
They said that Martin Short played the guy, which that'd be extra funny to see Martin Short basically in a G-string.
God.
And with his body painted.
The body paint people are still out there. They still do that stuff. It's more face paint than body paint, but you definitely still see the occasional like weird person at like a December Packers game with like no shirt on and like the team colors on, and it's always really nightmarish to see.
Man, the body paint I was just thinking of, because multiple popular recording artists dressed as Marge Simpson this year with full blue body paint. Yes,
yeah.
I believe it was Lizzo and I want to say Megan Thee Stallion, but I might be wrong. I know Lizzo did it. Well, meanwhile, I saw Kim Kardashian. She did Mystique, but she wore a bodysuit. It wasn't even body paint,
There was like a little paint in there, but not much.
Yeah. Now, if you're a billionaire, you should have the same level of Mystique outfit that Rebecca Romaine had in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, at the very least.
I mean, Diddy's spraying for what looks like the actual Joker costume. Like, keep pace.
That's right. I forgot Diddy was the Joker. That's right. Yeah. But yes, everybody's having a good time. We cut to the next day, the next weekend. Homer is just laying back on the couch, even letting Lisa make the calls and make the bets with Mo, and Mo just takes them from Lisa. Like, he doesn't even go like. It's also funny that he recognizes Lisa's voice even though he never recognizes Bart's voice. That's also good.
And he drops the confidentiality instead of saying hello LS.
Yeah, it's LS like, just give me the bet, Lisa, because he knows this is just he's gonna lose, and it's driving him crazy. The next day, Homer is at the bar bragging about it. This is when Barney asks if they want to hang out on Sunday. That's Super Bowl Sunday. Homer then makes plans for the next Sunday, which Barney says, well, his mom's gonna be in town from Norway, but okay, which is great. Like, I love that Barney's mom lives in Norway for some reason. And
is
that
Gumbel a Norwegian name?
Well, we do know later, this obviously was not in the joke they're making here, but we do know later she is a member of the Navy.
Yeah,
right.
She only comes back into town for war games.
Okay.
Wait, does she come back into town when Barney is like, tell him Big Baby sent you, and his diaper blows off and he goes, hi, Mom?
She was around the corner when he was nude. Yeah, that's true. So she was in town for that, at least.
But not seen on screen until season 8, where it's like Barney in a wig, basically.
Yes, yeah. You'll never get his attention that way. But yes, you see Homer make plans for the next Sunday, an important moment. Then we get a quick visit to show and tell.
Mo, this is LS calling for HS.
Just give me the bet, Lisa. 110, 120, you lucky son of a...
Hey, Homer, you want to go bowling next Sunday? Barney, are you nuts? That's the Super Bowl. How about the Sunday after that?
Well, my mom's coming in from Norway, but what the hell?
And when the doctor said I didn't have worms anymore, that was the happiest day of my life.
Thank you, Ralph. Very graphic. Lisa Simpson, would you like to read your essay?
The happiest day of my life was 3 Sundays ago. I was sitting on my daddy's knee when the Saints, who were 4.5-point favorites but only up by 3, kicked a meaningless field goal at the last second to cover the spread.
Dear God.
A fair response.
Again, all those words meaningless to me until I guess Uncut Gems makes a little more sense of it after watching that. But basketball bets are different from football bets.
They are,
I would assume.
but I also still don't understand how point spreads work. And no matter how many times I try to read up on it, I still don't get it.
My eyes just glazed over when I tried to do research on it, even this time.
Yeah.
Someone in the comments will describe it very well, and then we'll read the comment on Talk to the Audience this month.
Yeah. It's a perfect system.
It's up to you.
Yeah. But yes, we're getting close to the standardized version of Ralph here. Like, Ralph is kind of the stupid idiot. We know.
He's the weird
definitely
kid.
Telling graphic stories about worms that probably disgust the audience. And also Miss Hoover still has her blue hair. She's not yet. I feel like in just a few episodes that blue hair is gone.
I'll miss it.
It's a season 1 blue hair. That's really she's a season 2 debuter. So.
She gave it to Wiggum.
The my God reaction is also quite funny. So yes, Homer is spreading around the wealth. Again, I'm saying that we know this episode happens over the course of probably October to January.
Yes.
So perhaps these gifts are related to Christmas. This is Homer's like big Christmas gifts to everybody. Marge is gifted a fragrance, Meryl Streep's versatility, which she has never done a professional fragrance yet. She had recently at the time done an American Express ad, which people were like, "Oh, really? That's selling out, isn't it?" And she defended it of like, "Well, me and my family use American Express. What do you?" Nobody apologizes for that stuff now.
They like this joke so much it comes up again in A Streetcar Named Marge, where the pageant is brought to you by that, and the tagline is "Smell like Streep for cheap."
It's also such a friendly joke about Meryl Streep. Like, the joke is she wins a lot of awards.
Yep. She's still the most nominated Best Actress lady out there, and I think we were all making Calvin Klein's Obsession jokes around this time, because there'll be one in next season where the fancy braces emit Calvin Klein's obsession for teeth.
Right.
I feel like this was the era when the extremely haughty and expensive looking perfume ad really took hold on TV. Like, it was like in that late 80s, early 90s era where like they started getting weird French directors to do these completely unbearable ads for these fragrances that had weird celebrities in them.
Yeah, I think Homer's original Mr. Plow ad was a Calvin Klein parody ad.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, and speaking of SNL parodies, the one they did with Hartman and I believe Jan Hooks of Obsession, but it's about a cleaning supply that she can't stop using. That I think also was a great parody of that type. But yeah, Jim Brooks wants to work with Meryl Streep. He's not going to be too mean about her, which, I mean, what is there to be mean about? Even 30 years later, it's like, it seems she's just like a really great actress who everybody likes who works with her.
She is
and she'll be on the show in 3 years.
She's
as Jessica Lovejoy.
That's right. Yeah, she's like as blandly beloved a major actress as I feel like there is in the world.
And also when you see her and stuff, you're like, yeah, no, she should be nominated for this. She's very good at this.
Streeping it
She's
up.
a really great actress. Meanwhile, Maggie is gifted a stuffed elephant, but she prefers the bubble wrap. Bart is gifted a gag gift, which is so great because he says he never tires of it. It's one of those things you see at Spencer's Gifts and you think to yourself, who could ever enjoy this much? But Bart does. He really does.
I think Gene and Reese got a big kick out of this device because it comes up in The Critic where Duke Phillip wants to base a sitcom around that device. It's like, I think I'm calling it You Smell or something like that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. God, I just love it. Kiss my butt. Kiss my butt. God, so funny. And just Bart pressing it over and over again. And Lisa, meanwhile, has been gifted every single thing in the Malibu Stacy toy line. But Marge has questions.
Oh, Dad, you must have bought me every Malibu Stacy accessory there is.
Not quite. They were out of Malibu Stacy Lunar Rovers.
Ooh, perfume. Meryl Streep's versatility.
Boy, I know you're gonna like your present.
Shut up! Shut up! Kiss my butt! Shut up! Go to hell! Go to hell!
Dad, I promise you I will never get tired of this.
Homer, those were very thoughtful presents, but you have to tell me where you got the money from.
All right, Marge, I'll tell you, but first you have to promise you will not get mad.
I promise I will get mad, because I always do when you make me promise I won't.
All right, if you must know, Lisa and I have been gambling on pro football.
Homer!
You promised you wouldn't get mad.
I did not. I promised I would get mad.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
It's like, I promise I will get mad because I always do, and you make me promise I won't. That's a great line. The next time you're in an argument with a loved one and they say, like, promise me you won't get mad, you give him one of those. You got to tell them that.
And they talk about the legality of gambling, of course. We brought that up earlier in the episode. And there's a Wikipedia page called Gambling in the United States, which tells you which kinds of gambling are legal in which states. And there are 7 different kinds of betting. There's charitable betting, parimutuel, lotteries, commercial, tribal, racetrack, online, and sports betting. There is only one state in which all forms of gambling are illegal. You could probably guess which one that is.
Utah?
Yes.
Yeah,
you got it.
I knew it. I didn't look this up. See, I feel like I won the lottery right there.
And also Hawaii for some reason. Sorry, I just spotted that.
Oh, huh.
Yeah.
Now that makes less sense to me. Yeah, this was in that Forbes article. They said that in 1992 on Super Bowl 26 in Nevada, $50 million was legally bet on the Super Bowl then. Now, for Super Bowl 55 in 2021, $500 million was legally bet just in Vegas alone on the Super Bowl.
If you want to do all kinds of gamblings, go to Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, or New York.
New York?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all happening there.
Oh, yeah, I guess Atlantic City. That makes sense. Yeah. That's. I was shocked to find out, Bob, when I visited Vancouver, that they have casinos there. I just never considered Canadian casinos as like a thing. Honestly, I'm worried that I'm going to be visiting you more often in the future in Vancouver, and it'll be hard to pass up just getting a little action in at the tables.
Even with healthcare, Canadians love ruining their lives too. So don't you worry about that.
They're not so different from us.
Part of the human condition.
Homer though convinces Marge that the only victim is Moe, and that everything could be fine. And then in a perfect line to say as Act 2 is reaching its end, nothing could possibly go wrong.
But gambling is illegal.
Oh, only in 48 states. Besides, it's a victimless crime. The only victim is Moe. And it's brought Lisa and me together.
I just don't know.
Look, what's the problem? The kids are happy. You smell like Meryl Streep, and I got that foot massager I've always wanted. Believe me, Marge, nothing bad could possibly come of this.
Dad, we've been watching a lot of TV lately. Maybe the Sunday after the Super Bowl, we could hike up to the top of Mount Springfield. The fires in the tire yards really make for some beautiful sunsets.
Well, that sounds great, honey, but next Sunday I'm going bowling with Barney.
What about Daddy-Daughter Day?
Don't worry, the new football season is only 7 months away.
So that's it. You just wanted me to help you gamble. You never wanted to be with me at all.
You're a very selfish man.
Go to hell. Go to hell.
Hey, once again, great present, Dad.
That's so great, because at first you could think that the go to hell is Bart saying his displeasure at Homer, but it actually is him complimenting Homer on his great gift. Like he's not turned on Homer.
Bart doesn't care if Homer's a bad father. He just wants good gifts.
Yeah, he's got the keychain.
Yeah.
And it's Homer really underestimating Lisa's intelligence, because he thinks he can just, euphemistically get rid of Daddy-Daughter Day, but immediately she knows why.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. He's like, the football season will be next time. Like he just figures like, well, yeah, I'm not going to hang out with you if it wasn't for gambling. And then Lisa is right to be incredibly hurt by that, and just in a crying, very well done by Yardley. Like he earned that Emmy. It's sweet that Lisa, I guess, misunderstands or has such high hopes for Homer that she figures like, well, we have such a good time on Daddy-Daughter Day that if I suggest a hike to him, he'll want to do it. Like, no, Homer would never want to go on a hike, ever.
Like, do you think the possibility even of the idea of doing stuff on Sundays past football season has even entered Homer's mind at this point?
No, he can't really see beyond it.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
It's not just that it was all, a sham to gamble. It's not reciprocating, because in the beginning, Marge is like, well, have you taken an interest in things he likes? And for weeks, Lisa has done that, but he's not willing to do the same for one weekend. It's like, no, there's no gambling involved. I'm done with you.
Marge is right. He's a very selfish man. Like it's a dark time at the start of Act 3. I do also love Homer. Homer says, nothing could possibly go wrong. Instantly,
yes.
It all falls apart. We have a quick cut to Lisa's bad dream. I love the vision Lisa has for herself of her as a mean old gambler if she doesn't correct course. This is the thing she's afraid of. She'll be somebody with at least 3 former ex-husbands and hawking his jewelry for one last taste of the gambling.
Like, where has Lisa even seen a person like this at this stage of her, at 8 years old? Like,
Yeah.
Where is she seeing these degenerate gambling, former truck stop waitresses that fucking, are hawking their wedding rings just to get to the next thing and smoke themselves into a Doris voice?
I'm surprised they didn't have Doris Grau dub her in this scene.
Yeah.
That would have been funny. If Bart had this dark vision, it would end with him saying, cool.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lisa has the sense to know this is bad, but I love every bad future vision of Lisa. This and her, overweight, married to Ralph vision she had as well is quite funny. She wakes up in a start. She reflects on all of the things she has wasted, or all the things she got with the dirty money, the Alfa Romeo, which is an Italian luxury car, collagen injections, which apparently I thought they were like new at the time. They'd been around since the 70s, apparently. When I looked up history of collagen injections on Google, I think it's important for Lisa's moral standing as a character that she never that I feel like, look, you got your gifts, you won that stuff, it's your money, Lisa. Like, honestly, Homer should be giving you all of the money. It's your bets. But for Lisa's very strong moral code, it makes sense that she gives away all of the stuff. And again, a tribute to Rich Moore and his team, the stampede of little girls that nearly crush Bart and tear apart all of Lisa's things, like, to get their stuff. That's so funny.
Oh, it's great.
And they didn't have the word yoink yet, but I feel like they would have put it in when the girl yanks the chinchilla coat off the tiny hanger.
When she does it, I'm waiting for the yoink. I forget every time. It's just like, ooh.
I feel like in my brain, I'm inserting a yoink and trying to remember the scene.
Only makes sense to have a yoink there, But yes, we then have a very funny slash through what people expect from a sitcom. Even in my first viewing as a kid, I thought that this was the resolution, Homer's apology to Lisa. Lisa first tells her, like, sorry, Homer. But then when Homer apologizes, you're like, oh, okay. Maybe is like, you think this is like a regular sitcom. And then Homer instantly, like a piece of shit, then tries to trick her into telling him who to bet on. But this is when Lisa gives up on her father and makes her final bet.
Lisa, honey, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, but I really had a good time watching football with you. And I think you had a good time with me.
Yeah, I did.
Well, come on, we can still watch a Super Bowl together, can't we? Huh?
Well, I would like to see what all the fuss is about.
It's a day. So, do you think the Redskins will beat the spread?
Put me down. Look, Dad, I'll tell you who's going to win the Super Bowl if you want me to, but it'll just validate my theory that you cared more about winning money than you did about me.
Okay.
I think Washington is a mortal lock.
Washington! Woohoo!
However.
However? What however? What do you mean however? However what?
However, I may also be so clouded with rage that subconsciously I want you to lose. In which case, I bet the farm on Buffalo.
Lisa, do me a favor. Complete this sentence. Daddy should bet all his money on...
I don't know.
Oh.
If I still love you, Washington. If I don't, Buffalo.
So there you have it. And yes, he said that's the old name of the Washington Guardians. That it took him a very long time to change.
The Commanders.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, Commanders.
Yeah.
Guardians is that's the Cleveland
team.
Yes, the Cleveland team.
Sorry.
One of the other teams that had to change their name because their name was actually kind of racist. So, a couple of things just real quick here about the game that is being immortalized here, this Super Bowl. This is the first of 3 Super Bowls in a row that the Buffalo Bills would go on to lose. This is a dark time to be a Buffalo fan, though they are newly ascendant now. This is the last time the Washington quote-unquote Commanders would win the Super Bowl between then and now. In fact, in the last 30 years, they have only had 9 winning seasons, and most of those were 9-7 or 8-7-1 seasons. They have been historically bad for a very long time after this, mostly since Dan Snyder took over the team, who is widely considered the worst owner in all of football.
Man, wow. That's at first I was going to say it's like karma getting on them, but I guess it's really just Dan Snyder is horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it was a horrible name to begin with, but he really dug in his heels, even more so than other teams, with like, no, this name is not racist, it's actually good, you don't understand. Also, he's hated so much that the other NFL owners hate him, to the point where they are trying to get him to sell the team, and I think he has actually indicated he finally is going to, because he apparently was keeping dirt on a bunch of the other NFL owners and was threatening to release that if anyone ever came after him. And then some of the other owners, like Jim Irsay of the Colts, was like, come at me, bro. I don't care. Release whatever you want. I want you gone. That's how much they hate him.
Wow, man. I mean, if other NFL team owners think you're a bad person, you have to be the worst.
Yes.
The worst person on earth.
The worst thing you can do as part of an NFL ownership group is fumble the bag. And all he has done throughout his tenure is fumble the bag, not just with making the team bad, but also losing the team money. Losing money as an NFL franchise is exceedingly difficult to do, and he has found ways to do it.
Wow.
So racial insensitivity is one thing. Profit margins, a whole other problem. Yes, yeah. But, well, there is a lot of history to Lisa's picks here. Lisa is correct, and she, it's funny. So this is from the Al Jean interview with Forbes. He talks about, and he mentions it on the commentary too, he bet against Lisa. And because he thought the Bills were due.
Yeah.
He's like, the Bills are gonna get there. Like he bet against her, and when the Washington football team won, so that was 92. In 1993 and 1994, Fox decides they will replay this each year, and that they would, instead of keeping the names from the previous year, they did the really neat thing of updating the two team names every year for the the players on each year's Super Bowl game, which was also helpful because it was Buffalo every year for the 3 years.
That's
so
incredible.
They could keep all the Buffalo lines.
And also the lip sync never matched in the first place, right?
Yes, yeah, it was always wrong. I mean, when I watched it in the rerun in 93 as a kid and heard the names were different, that she said Cowboys, I was like, wait, what? That's not what it was before. They re-recorded all these lines, and not just her or Homer, but also Harry Shearer's lines as the commentator get redone too.
And no one's lifting a beer glass up over their face to say the name of the team,
Yes.
like in the later Super Bowl episode.
Yes. Which that's a great joke too.
Yeah.
But Al Jean said his reasoning was not just because he wanted to bet against Lisa every year, but it was because he thought every year Buffalo was due. He's like, well, yeah, when the team loses one year, but they make it back the next year, they definitely win then. And then by the third year, he's like, okay, the Bills have got to do it this year. Like he was sure of that. Yes.
It turns out they were the Washington Generals of this whole this period of the Super Bowl.
I also knew this stuff about the Bills losing, not as a sports fan, but as an X-Files fan, because there's a really funny joke in the cigarette smoking man origin episode when he finally got put in charge of the secret Black Ops group. One of his commandments was like, and the Buffalo Bills never get to win a Super Bowl. They made it that he had fixed the games with his special powers.
Makes you wonder what the Buffalo Bills did to him earlier in his life.
Again, Homer accepting when she says like, well, I'll tell you, but it'll just validate to me that you cared more about gambling than me. Okay. He accepts it, like, I want to win money, Lisa. Give me I don't care. If it hurts your feelings, I do not care. Like, what an asshole. And I'm with Yardley now. He's too far down.
Yeah.
He can't come back from this. So yes, they then it's the game day. Homer has started he's very depressed about it because he knows that it's really about Lisa's love here. They announced that it's at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome, which was the site of Super Bowl 26.
Okay.
And which has not existed since 2014. It got demolished. It was one of those domes, just like the Tokyo Dome. Actually, apparently the Tokyo Dome was like designed based on it, the Metrodome, which I miss those old 70s domes. Now today's domes look I like the retro future of those old domes.
Arena designs now kind of suck. And the thing is, it's not that the old arenas were great, but there was like a kind of personality to them a little bit, especially if you were a wrestling fan. Like when they went to the Garden, you always you knew when they were in the Garden, Now these days they feel like family fun centers, and extremely expensive ones at that.
And they were named after dead old men, not Quicken Loans.
Yes.
Yes. No, yeah, I just went to the where the 49ers played to see Elton John last month, and yeah, again I was struck by it doesn't feel very special. It just feels like I'm in a mall or something. It feels, it's very sleek, but yeah.
The only way you can tell them apart is by the roof design. That seems to be where they throw all the money, is what kind of weird roof do we have?
I will say that Las Vegas, I've only driven by it, but that one in Las Vegas, it certainly looks like a lot of money. It looks very expensive.
It fits with the Vegas aesthetic of this is expensive. but not that expensive.
Yeah. Well, first we see that the Super Bowl is playing all around the world, including in France, where they don't care about it and they'd rather watch Jerry Lewis, which as a kid made no sense to me. It was before Animaniacs made Jerry Lewis a regular character on the show.
And W. Gimel Aleph Nun in Tel Aviv is a fun joke about the Hebrew alphabet, because those are all Hebrew characters in the alphabet. Gimel, Aleph, and Nun. There's no W.
Oh,
So,
that's clever.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And I decided to look it up, and I was like, why do the French like Jerry Lewis? There's a lot of articles written about it, but essentially in the 60s, the intelligentsia fell in love with Jerry Lewis, and they were writing things like, oh, his pratfalls are a window into the human condition. And they were taking him way too seriously. But that's why. It's because the intelligentsia fell in love with him and sparked a movement.
Man, yeah, well, it worked out for him.
I mean, French people just love people falling down.
Yeah, it would be kind of like if Adam Sandler made all his movies in the 90s and then no one cared about him and he was like popular in Uruguay.
Yes. I also really love that drawing of Lisa mournfully playing her sax. That's a really good shot. And Homer can't take it no more. He's got to leave. We visit Moe's where it's there's a big brunch for Sunday. This is a runner just for this episode of Moe answering the phone and saying like Moe's Tavern, blankety blank blank blank. I just love Barney's reaction, like bologna, bread. Like when he sees the bread, like bread. Like God,
he's wowed by a lot of things, including a free beer that Moe dumps in the sink.
Oh, it so sad. He's like, oh God. But yes, Homer comes in. Moe tries to lie and say he's not taking bets, but Homer doesn't want to take a bet anyway. This is when Moe gives and rescinds his free beer to Barney. Again, a great line by Homer. I had the greatest gift of all, a little girl who could pick football, and I ruined it. Like he doesn't care that he had just his own daughter, but just he still only cares about the gambling. That's all he cares about. And so then we head to the NFL pre-show, which is the Super Bowl pre-show, which is at 2 hours and 45 minutes. I mean, Alex, Super Bowl pre-shows are way longer than 3 hours now,
they're
right?
all-day events now.
I mean, they're more like even 2 days. Like Saturday is a ton of programming, too, from the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. They like, if you're on an ESPN or something, they will do nothing but talk about the Super Bowl for at least, that entire week. And then the networks will find ways to slide that stuff in wherever they can. But basically from the moment the sun comes up on Super Bowl Sunday to when the game starts, there is nothing but guys in suits talking about the various ways in which one team might win the game, or how this one this free safety has a charity thing. They found a way to do an hour on that. They are stretching, and I can't watch it anymore. I just can't do it anymore.
I mean, I knew that it must have gotten big because WrestleMania pre-shows, which are just copying the entire programming of Super Bowl Sunday, like their pre-shows are 3 hours of nothing,
yes.
Like not even wrestling. They just are like people talking.
I've been to a few Super Bowl parties in the modern era, like the past 20 years, and the pre-show is so long that people are already hungover before the game starts.
Yep.
They've already drank so much that they're hungover before kickoff.
Pretzels have been decimated.
Yeah.
So once again, it's the Simpsons. It's not really them predicting it. It's just that predicting something. It's that their satire of doing too much of something is eclipsed by reality becoming sillier. And then, speaking of ripped from the headlines, we get an appearance by Troy McClure.
Well, sir, we're 2 hours and 45 minutes into the pregame show, and we've got ourselves a special guest. Actor Troy McClure, whose new sitcom is premiering tonight, coincidentally enough, right after the game.
Thanks, Brett. My new show is called Handle with Care. I play Jack Handle, a retired cop who shares an apartment with a retired criminal. We're the original odd couple.
What made you want to do a situation comedy?
Well, I fell in love with the script, Brett. And my recent trouble with the IRS sealed the deal.
Great, Troy. Oh, looks like we're almost ready for the kickoff. Washington kicks. Oh, it's a bad kick, way too short. Buffalo is going to start with excellent field position.
Buffalo's gonna win. Lisa hates me.
What you got riding on this game?
My daughter.
What a gambler.
A rare line for Barfly 2 there.
Sam, I believe his name is.
Yes, yeah.
Ripped from the pages of 1985, because this is a joke about, a lot of series aired after the Super Bowl or started. Like Lassie is a big one that premiered after the Super Bowl or had a big episode after the Super Bowl. I forget how it works. But this is based on Magruder and Loud, which is an Aaron Spelling produced show that didn't last. But yes, it's not about a retired cop and a retired criminal. It's about a policeman and police policewoman couple who have to keep it a secret from their boss. And yes, they are named Magruder and Loud, and that's how it works.
Terrible. Yeah, it's an example of, for the 80s especially, there's a great list. Wikipedia just has a list of like everything that aired after the Super Bowl, but especially if you don't live in America, you might not know this, but like the first thing to air after the Super Bowl is a primetime slot for a network. Like, especially, I think from the 80s onward, or maybe even in the 70s, that was where each network didn't get a monopoly on it. They basically get a Super Bowl each year. So it's like, well, this is CBS's year with the Super Bowl, and we've got all of these eyes, the most viewers that'll be watching our channel all year. The second the Super Bowl's over, we need to premiere with something we think is going to be a big, big hit. And especially in the 80s, the picks would be things that failed so hard, they would be canceled by, in best case scenario, April.
Yeah.
Sometimes February.
And, they made fun of these crappy shows airing after the Super Bowl, starting or premiering, when that would become something that would really anger Matt Groening, because Futurama was meant to premiere after the Super Bowl in '99, but Family Guy got that slot.
Yep. Yeah. The new bosses on Fox, they saw Family Guy as the one to get that slot instead of Futurama. Yeah, I was looking over the list of losers as well from the 80s, and one other one that reminded me of Handle with Care is one called The Last Precinct, which was a cop comedy, and it starred Adam West, which that also made me think like, oh, that's also a Troy McClure type there. And there was also one called Hard Copy, which is not that hard copy. It was a newsroom drama, and I think they realized that no, you don't take a chance on a brand new series. You debut a big episode of Friends or The Simpsons or whatever. You just put, or Third Rock from the Sun. Yeah, you put that after the Super Bowl. Though there were a few successes. I guess you could call Family Guy a success, so it actually was a failure.
I was going to say, I think history, unfortunately, has proven those executives correct on that one.
Yeah, well, Futurama is hanging around, but yeah, Family Guy won. I have to admit it. But 3 successes of debuts then were A-Team, I guess Airwolf. Airwolf, it got more than 2 seasons.
It counts.
Yeah, and Wonder Years. Those all also premiered after the Super Bowl. So it's not all losers, but it's mostly losers.
Yeah, and also Lassie was deep into its 19-year run when it aired after the first Super Bowl, but it was still the first thing to air after a Super Bowl was an episode of Lassie.
I love that's so great and yes, now The Simpsons has aired twice after the Super Bowl, with Sunday Cruddy Sunday in season 9, and then in 2005 with Homer and Ned's Hail Mary Pass.
And that episode, the latter one, is one of the most notable ones because it's one of the highest rated ones ever for The Simpsons because of its slot. I think Sunday Cruddy Sunday is a little bit lower because Family Guy was the first thing you would see, and maybe fewer after that. But yeah, that Homer and Ned's Hail Mary Pass, one of the highest rated Simpsons of all time.
It's also funny because right after it was the premiere of American Dad, so them and the Seth MacFarlane show traded places. Yes. Sorry, Alan.
Also another winner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still airing on TBS to this day, which I figured would stop because Disney owns it now and they wouldn't want it on a Warner channel, but still going.
Want it back.
Well, man, what does Warner even want now? I don't even know.
They clearly don't know at this point. They just want whatever. I think what they want is more Harry Potter movies, unfortunately.
Ooh.
It's a real vibe of the 2020s that executives buy things they don't know what they want. They bought them. Yeah, they don't know why they bought them. They just have them. But all right. So yeah, I love the hosts very dismissive, like great Troy. Hey, I see they're about to start the game.
Yeah, it sounds like a real winner.
So yes, and also sorry, I love that Troy says we're the original Odd Couple, which is like, no, the Odd Couple is the Odd Couple. Like, how dare you describe your show as the original Odd Couple?
It's a good throwaway line for a show like that.
But then we come to the never tedious halftime show.
People of Earth, we've come 10 billion light years to bring you this halftime message of peace.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock,
rock.
5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock,
rock.
9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock.
We're gonna rock around the world tonight.
Oh, this sucks. Come on, snipers, where are you?
Bart, who's winning?
You Hate Dad is up by a touchdown.
So, yes, first off, I love Bart's saying of "You hate Dad" is up by a touchdown. And also he wants to see murders happen live on screen. Yeah, so the halftime show back then, a joke. It was detested, Alex. You recall?
I do. This year, I was looking this up. The year of this Super Bowl, it was the Winter Magic salute to the 1992 Winter Olympics, featuring Gloria Estefan and Olympic figure skaters Brian Boitano and Dorothy Hamill.
It's what football fans want to see.
Yeah. I wonder, if Brian Boitano was not part of this Super Bowl, would Matt and Trey in South Park have heard of him and then made him a joke in their original Spirit of Christmas? I wonder.
Well, that's a good point.
It's of note here, this is the last Super Bowl halftime show you could charitably describe as a joke, because literally the next year is Michael Jackson, and that is the thing that kicked off the era of what if we got big musicians that your dad likes.
Yeah, it's and they're running out of those big music. Well, now I've looked up this year's or coming soon in January. Rihanna is she's a Super Bowl star. Though usually there's tons of surprise guests. That's part of the fun of it. Is just ooh, not just Rihanna, somebody else showed. The Jack Harlow showed up there. That's a current guy.
Maroon 5?
Actually, Maroon 5 is more Coldplay dude showed up one time.
Okay.
They
Coldplay dude.
Chris Martin.
Last year's was Dre, Snoop, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar announced, and then they also just threw 50 Cent and Anderson .Paak in there.
All right. See, this man, that's what sucks now. This shows we're old. We know the names of the people they put in the halftime show because we're in our 40s.
We're the dads.
We're the dads. Yes.
In spirit, at least.
Yeah. But this thing with the aliens is actually based on the closing ceremonies of the 1984 Olympics. Now, it's on YouTube. You can watch it. It's so long. These things are so tight and slick now, even though they're very long and boring, but there's a point to them. And, occasionally the soon-to-be assassinated president of a country will come out of a pipe like Mario, and it's fun. But in this one, it's about, okay, all the countries walk by, blah, 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 fireworks. A UFO appears. It takes forever to land. It takes so long to land. And then it finally lands. An alien comes out and talks for about 20 seconds. Actually, the announcer talks over him briefly. Yes. There's a major flub there. But do you have a clip of this, Henry?
I do have a clip of the alien greeting the closing ceremony for the LA Olympics of 1984.
Limitless possibilities of human achievement. For almost 100 years, you have celebrated the best that humanity has to offer. You call it the Olympic Games. And for that, and for the cities which have kept the Olympic ideal alive, I salute you.
And then a bunch of fireworks go off. It was just the preamble to fireworks, but I love that they invent what if an alien landed and said he loves the Olympics and that it's wonderful, a tribute to humanity.
And the UFO is landing, and you think they'll play the ET theme because it's 84. No, they're playing the Close Encounters of the Third Kind theme when the alien is landing.
Well, the Olympics is always a bunch of years behind on those things.
But yeah, it's a reference to that, and it's available to watch online. But we played the alien clip.
Yeah, it is fun. The commentator right before it is saying that's not a man on stilts. That's a 7-foot man in a costume. It's well, you're ruining the mystique here, buddy. That's but yes, it's in 1992. Even listeners heard it because I plugged it in the commercial break. But the commercials actually were part of making fun of the Super Bowl. They in the halftime show that advertised this episode of The Simpsons, and we're all sick of the halftime show, right? And they played the clip from this before to promote the episode. It was also because that same year in 92 was when Fox did their live telecast of In Living Color during the halftime show as alternative programming, which that was a whole thing in the 90s, at least, the alternative programming era, especially as wrestling fans, me and Alex know the Super Bowl halftime show world title match that happened.
Oh,
yes.
I'm thinking of a reference to something we'll talk about soon, and that's Beavis and Butthead's Butt Bowl.
Oh, yes.
Also
Butt Bowl
great.
Too,
Yeah. For 3 years, they would premiere a new cartoon during the halftime show, and I was there.
I love the butt bowl. Yes, that was also good. But yeah, the Super Bowl halftime show match between The Rock and Mankind was the empty arena match they did, because it was very tightly edited, because it had to be exactly as long as a halftime show.
It had to be exactly as long as the halftime show, and also it was definitely pre-recorded. I'm pretty sure. So it was all very. It was definitely not like the everything is live presentation they were kind of trying to give off of everything else. It was, but also it's one of the only one of those matches, like pre-taped and heavily edited, that I feel like was actually good, because most of those usually ended up being garbage.
You know, the COVID era of wrestling gave us a lot of cinematic matches, but that was one of the first.
You know, they didn't have the Thunderdome back there, so it just didn't have the same effect.
I also love that one because horrible person Vince McMahon does commentary on it, and he is really good at doing commentary on matches. A horrible man otherwise, but
Now we just know him as the man who falls out of the chair on Twitter.
Yes, yeah, he's oh god,
he's too horny.
Yeah, it's his legacy. He is too horny, as we learned,
like in real life too.
Yeah. But you know what? This next halftime show, it's also sponsored by Apple Music. I meant to say that too. It's not just, it's like, how many more ads do there need to be in the Super Bowl that the halftime show also has to have a sponsor? Like, Jesus Christ. But I mean, it wouldn't be America's #1 sport if it wasn't packed full of every ad you possibly could get into it.
No, our entire economy is predicated on advertising things to people. Like, if the advertising went away, there would be nothing left.
And so then we get a quick joke about the Duff Bowl, which is great. Duff Dry beats Duff Regular in it, and I love that Barney thinks that was the bet. It's like, okay, they're both great teams. Like, such a great. Also, seeing a beer pouring another beer onto Tom Landry beer is so funny.
We got to talk about the Bud Bowl, though.
Yes.
Because it started in 89, ran until 97. It was an annual event featuring a series of commercials that ran throughout the Super Bowl. And throughout the series of commercials, you would see a Bud Bowl game being played between two opposing sides of Budweiser products, Bud Light versus Budweiser. Budweiser typically won over Bud Light. Over time, the stop-motion bottles would become CGI, and actually Tom Landry played a beer bottle version of himself in the Bud Bowl, which is why he is in this parody of the Bud Bowl, and people would bet on it.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I have to assume it went away because the thought could have been, should kids be seeing the beer cartoon throughout the Super Bowl, which is why I liked it.
I loved it for that very reason, yes.
I think it also just kind of wore out its welcome at a certain point. Like, people kind of just, you know, I mean, like the fads of Super Bowl advertising, there's definitely trends that kind of come and go. And in this case, I'm pretty sure that like people just got very bored with the bottles like wrestling one another. And then once the Puppy Bowl came around, like really, what other alternative programming could anyone possibly need from the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Isn't there some Victoria's Secret thing now during the Super Bowl, like halftime
there was
show?
a lingerie bowl at some point.
Okay.
I remember that.
I do think that happened. I don't think that was a regular feature.
You know, the Bud Bowl, I loved it too as a kid, Bob. It was cartoons on TV. That was why. Like, I don't even today. I especially wouldn't drink Budweiser, so it didn't work in that regard. Though I'll tell you how much I loved it. We went on some family vacation not long after this. We went to a Budweiser bottling plant, and in the merch in the gift shop at the end, they had Bud Bowl hats. Like helmets you could put on an empty beer bottle, and so I asked my dad to like buy a Budweiser beer bottle, and I will put the helmet on it, and I'll have that like on my bookshelf at home.
It's good for the kids.
Much I loved it.
Take the kids to see how beer is made. One final fact about it: I don't like the metaphorical implications of this. At Bud Bowl 6, it featured the first appearance by a can of beer in the game. So the can scored a touchdown but was ejected from the Bud Bowl shortly after due to excessive foul language during its celebration.
Whoa.
Again,
wow, that's very loaded, wow.
I don't care for the metaphorical implications. I didn't put them on there, but I'm just reading them in this this can appearance in the Bud Bowl. So it was always bottles. But this can, you know, too much showboating, I guess.
Boy.
What would Jimmy the Greek say about these cans?
Oh, God, yes. Yeah. Oh, God. You know, I looked up the Bud Bowl commercials for 92 for the Super Bowl, and they actually very much disappointed me because it's like a sweepstakes thing, and the Bud Bowl actually is barely featured on screen. It's like the story of some guy trying to get to a Super Bowl party to bet on the Bud Bowl and see if he won. It's like they then occasionally show the commentators say, well, this is the score, and if your game piece says this score, then you won. I was like, I wanted to see the beer bottles play against each other. I didn't want to see a story about a contest. We have a quick cut to Lovejoy studiously doing his service. Congregant realizes, like, oh, God, I forgot about the game. Runs straight out of the room. That's
Ned was not super religious yet, so he's watching the game.
Yeah, probably from his rumpus room. We then get kind of a crummy joke about if they win, they'll be looting and turning over cars in the in the country's capital today. I guess a joke about that Washington, D.C. has crime in it. I would guess that's a joke.
Or just how fans will destroy things when they win.
Sure.
It's not
nonsensically.
It's not just D.C. I mean, there is a long storied history of various cities deciding to set a lot of stuff on fire when their team wins. I think Vancouver had it at one point. There are people right now girding for whether or not Philadelphia actually wins the World Series or not. They literally have to grease poles in that town so people don't climb up them. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, no, I remember an Erie E3 where the streets were quiet because the Lakers were in a championship game down the street, and they're like, and cops were everywhere of like, if the Lakers win, shit's going down. And they're like, I think there was some horseback cop who told me and my nerd friends, like, get to your hotel right now. Like, things could get really bad real soon here.
I was going to say, speaking of horses, I think it was in Philadelphia that a fan was so happy his team won that he did eat the poop of a police horse.
Jesus Christ.
These are not sober people, to be clear.
Yes.
The decisions that are being made here are not under the umbrella of sobriety.
But fortunately, because they're not doing these things for political reasons, it is viewed as totally fine and just part of the society that's forgivable.
Yes.
Yeah. But yes, it comes down to a last-second touchdown, which in reality the score was 37-24. I think it was pretty clear by I think the third quarter. Yeah, the quarter. I said
chapter.
No, you were right.
But yes, this is when we get a happy ending.
So, with 3 ticks left on the clock, it all comes down to this one play. If Washington scores here, happy fans will be looting and turning over cars at our nation's capital tonight. Here's the handoff.
Please, please, please.
Touchdown! Next fork in this one, it is done. The Washington Redskins win Super Bowl 26.
I guess you love Dad.
I suspected as much.
Yes, she loves me. She loves me.
What are you so happy about, Homer? You didn't win any money.
Money comes and money goes, but what I have with my daughter can go on for 8 more years.
Come on, Dad!
It's beautiful.
Isn't it so?
After I catch my breath, can we go home?
It's sweet. Homer, he'll do it for one weekend. I'm betting there wasn't a daddy-daughter day the next weekend.
But he is setting trends with his new Radicals hat.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I love bucket hats. Well, I don't love them, but I like wearing them.
I haven't seen you wear yours yet, Henry.
Well, I wear it all the time. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Alex. I thought did you have memories of that E3, of that weird E3 with the LA? Yeah.
So I wasn't out on the streets when that happened, but a couple of coworkers of mine were out, I think getting out of some kind of event when that was happening, and they basically got kettled by the cops because they were starting to like come down in their, dumbass riot cop line down the street. And they had to find a way to get out of there because they were not part of the sports celebration. They were just trying to get back to the hotel. And I think they had to like basically duck into an alleyway to get out of the path of the cops coming to get the revelers.
They were screaming, "Please, I just previewed Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. I didn't ask for this."
I believe, it's bringing back more memories. I believe I had just seen Reggie Fils-Aimé of Nintendo give a comment about a Fire Emblem video game. And now I'm being told, like, you might be beaten to death by Lakers fans if you don't get out of here.
Avoid those critical hits.
It's funny when all those years when the Kings won, not really the same thing.
But the Mount Springfield looks beautiful. I really love it. It's such a, it feels, after all the time spent on the couch, it really does feel special to get on top of the mountain and see that beautiful vista. Also, though, based on Homer's near heart attack at the start of the episode, I would assume he died on the hike down. I think
Lisa just rolled him down. He's rolled down gorges before and survived.
And also, yes, that I love Homer's realism of saying, 8 more years, meaning when she's 16, he accepts it, she'll definitely hate me by the time she's 16. But
that was my translation, yes.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful ending, only undercut by, your knowledge that definitely Homer will not do anything nice for Lisa the next week, but he did it at least this week. I mean, we did the Make Room for Lisa episode is also all about how much Homer doesn't do shit for Lisa. and her moral at the end of that one is, much like this one, why don't you do something Homer likes? I think Homer gets enough stuff he likes, guys,
It was a very dad perspective in that episode.
Yes. Yeah.
This one, though, my final thoughts are, I'm surprised that I like it so much, and I love this one, even though it's about football, which I don't care about, and it's basically characters watching TV for 75% of the episode. But a part of me loves the self-control and the patience this episode has that would go away immediately. It's an anomaly right now towards the middle of the third season, or towards the end of the third season, really. And I kind of miss that slow pacing, and it's one of the last glimpses of that in the series, and I do really like it. And it's also a very touching episode. And yes, Yardley does deserve that Emmy. So yeah, it's always one I appreciate going back to, even though I don't care about football.
Yeah. Well, the football is, again, it's more of a means to an end. It's a thing that is about, Homer's, destructive obsession and Lisa trying to find her way into his good graces, whether she should or not. And yeah, I mean, this one feels like it is threading that needle between kind of the, the still second season, early third season of we're doing these very heartfelt sitcom plots versus the just sort of parade of wackiness that would sort of pervade the series going forward. And don't get me wrong, I love the parade of wackiness. The seasons that come after this are fantastic. But it's a really nice blend of that stuff in an episode that, like you said, is paced a little bit more slowly, but it has a really nice heartfelt message in it. And it feels like one of the few instances where the connection between Homer and Lisa at the end is genuine.
They're brought much closer together from the incredible distance they start in the episode with that angered Yardley Smith so much that she swears when talking about it to this day. I think it's a classic as well, which is done in a more grounded way than I remembered. I remember more of the wacky commentary on the halftime show or whatever, but they don't hit it as hard as they would in their next trip to the Super Bowl.
Alex Navarro, thanks again for joining us. Please let us know where we can find you online and tell us more about Nextlander.
Absolutely. Nextlander is a trio of folks, two of my former coworkers from GiantBomb.com, a video game website. We stream games, we do a podcast, we also do a watchcast where we are watching films and television. All of that stuff can be found over at patreon.com/Nextlander or just Nextlander.com. And we are Nextlander on Twitter, and I am Alex_Navarro on Twitter until the day that Musk just burns the fucking thing down.
It could have already happened.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're hours away at this point.
Not long after this episode comes out, I guess it'll be Game of the Year season, and always a busy time for you.
Indeed. And we're doing it a little looser with our Game of the Year stuff. We're not as regimented as we used to be at Giant Bomb, but yeah, we'll be doing some special episodes of our podcast around our favorites of the year, probably in the end of December.
No, I can't wait to hear you talking about your Game of the Year choices and sussing them out with Vinny and Brad every year is so fun to hear. I always look forward to it. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you, Alex, so much for coming on. It was always great to have you.
Thank you so
again,
much
Alex.
for having me. I really enjoy being on this show, and so far you've pretty much picked great episodes, ones that I love. So I'm always happy to do it.
Oh, thank you.
Wait until next time.
All right,
we'll give you a season 14 one. See how you feel then. No.
Thanks again to Alex Navarro for being on the show. Please check out everything he's doing over at Nextlander. But as for us, if you want to check out more of what we do and get these episodes 1 week at a time and ad-free, please head on over to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up for $5 a month. You get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes over 100 episodes of our our podcast miniseries covering things like Mission Hill and The Critic, and we have monthly ongoing miniseries about Futurama and King of the Hill. And right now we are doing our exclusive annual miniseries. We're doing season 2 of Blabbin' About Batman, the animated series, our podcast miniseries all about Batman, the animated series. A new episode every week through the end of 2022. You can only find it behind the $5 paywall only at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, and there is a $10 level as well on Patreon. When you sign up for that, you get access to everything behind the $5 paywall, of course, but also access to one mega-long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon movie podcast, where we cover a different animated feature film once a month, going super in-depth just like we do an episode of The Simpsons, often going over 4 hours about an animated feature film. Last month, at the end of October, we covered Transformers the movie, the 1986 classic toy commercial. And this month, we are covering the 2012 stop-motion cult classic, I would say, Paranorman. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. And at the end of the year, we'll be covering the holiday classic, Tokyo Godfathers. And there's a giant back catalog, over 4 years of What a Cartoon movies at your fingertips at that $10 a month level that you can check out. I would say over 270 hours of What a Cartoon movie podcasts of us covering so many different things. We've done both Beavis and Butthead movies, Do America and Do the Universe, if you liked our talk about the Butt Bowl in this one. Everything from Akira to a Goofy movie, as I've said, as I enjoy saying. So please check out everything you're missing at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
As for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast, by the way, is Retronauts. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 full-length bonus episodes every month. And Henry, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. Stay up to date with what's going on in my life. As well, you should follow the official Twitter account of this podcast at Talk Simpsons Pod. You will stay up to date when new things happen on the Patreon, on the free feed. If we've got live shows, anything going on, you know it if you follow at Talk Simpsons Pod. And of course, if you would like an easy to explore list of all of the free episodes we've done of this podcast and our sister podcast, What a Cartoon, you can find it all and more at TalkingSimpsonsPodcast.com.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you again next time for Season 13's Blame It on Lisa, and we'll see you again.
My third husband bought me this. Give me some chips for it.
Are you sure, ma'am?
Don't tell me what to do, Sonny. I've been gambling since I was 8, and I've been hawking jewelry since I was 12. Now give me some chips.